Chapter 1086. Haha, Brother Chun is so young. I didn't expect you to be recognized by the sect master and be appointed as a commander. This time, you're in charge of everything in the spirit god realm. I'm so envious. In the spirit god realm, a group of people in blood-red robes were hiding in an ancient forest in the mountains. They were looking at the countless cracks in the void with a sinister smile on their faces, especially the four people in front of the group. They were surrounded by a dense, underworld aura. They were the experts of the Gone Sky Divine Sect. Of course, they were only experts of the first level of the Saint Realm and 2 of the Exalted Realm. The rest of the ordinary disciples were mostly in the first level of the Divine Emperor Realm. This time, the sect master ordered us to search for the underworld plate and collect the blood spirits. As long as we complete the sect master's mission, we will definitely be promoted. We might even be valued by the Holy Infant. One of the black-clothed young men with a cold appearance spoke indifferently, as if he didn't feel the slightest bit of honor because of this so-called position of commander. Yes. However, Commander Chun, we have been searching for the underworld plate for dozens of years. You are. One of the middle-aged men sneered. Although his tone was polite, there was a hint of sarcasm in his eyes. I have a friend who is the second prince of the ancient Chilean divine dynasty. I got all this information from him. Now that the experts of the Flame Dragon dynasty have all come out, the ancient Chilean divine dynasty must be in a terrible situation. Commander Wang, you will lead some people to the ancient Chilean divine dynasty to collect blood spirits. Commander Shui and I will go to Soaring Dragon City to meet with the ancient Moon Prince and see if we have a chance to obtain the Netherworld plate sealed in the Flame Dragon dynasty. Chen Qingshan raised his head and looked at the middle-aged man. He was stunned and shouted, Commander Chun, the sect master said that I will be in charge of this operation. Remember, if you can't collect enough blood spirits before returning to the sect, you should know the consequences. Yes. Finally, Chen Qingshan stepped forward and led the group of Gone Sky Divine Sect disciples to the Soaring Dragon City. Just now, the sect master had sent a message that Folded Shadow would be in the city. Chen Qingshan didn't even need to know the sect master's plan. He just needed to follow the orders. As for the Dream Demon Abyss Brocade, he was still in the Gone Sky Divine Sect. He was in charge of monitoring the Holy Infant to prevent any accidents. All of a sudden, the spirit god domain was completely shaken. At the border of ancient Chilean, 10 cities were destroyed in succession. Blood flowed like a river. Among them, a black-clothed figure was holding a demonic blade. Chaotic aura seemed to be covering his body. Wherever the fiery dragon warriors went, he swallowed all the blood and souls. The Black Tortoise Divine Dynasty, inside the Imperial Palace. He saw a tall and sturdy figure sitting on the main seat, his square and black face surging with a wisp of seriousness. It seems like Yanlong Holy Court is determined to destroy Gulin this time. Emperor, recently, many ancient Chilean refugees have entered our Black Tortoise Divine Dynasty. Some of them are saying, in front of the Great Hall, a Black Tortoise general had a dark expression. He wanted to say something, but stopped himself. Say what? The Black Tortoise Emperor frowned and asked coldly. He said that the Flame Dragon ancestor has already boasted that by destroying Gulin, he would be able to suppress the Golden Crow, destroy the Black Tortoise, and unify the 4 dynasties. Impudent. The Black Tortoise Emperor's face changed abruptly. A heavy aura fell from the sky like a divine mountain, suppressing everything. Among the 4 dynasties, the Flame Dragon dynasty was good at killing, especially when Yenloapa had stepped into the 3rd grade heavenly sovereign level. The dynasty's prestige had reached its peak. The Black Tortoise Emperor had long guessed that the Flame Dragon Divine Dynasty would have the ambition to unify the 4 dynasties sooner or later. He didn't expect that this day would come so suddenly. Yinjing's death was indeed an excellent opportunity. However, the Black Tortoise Emperor didn't believe that the second prince of Gulin had colluded with the Sky Demon. Now that the Sky Demon was still young, any force with a brain would not dare to get involved with him easily. Only those who believed in the Sky Demon's demon path would be loyal to him. Therefore, such words might be a conspiracy of the Flame Dragon Imperial family. There were many guesses in this game of chess, but no one thought that from the beginning, the four dynasties were just prey in Ling Zhao's eyes, waiting to be slaughtered. Emperor, with the ancient Qilin Divine Dynasty's strength, it will be difficult to resist the Flame Dragon Imperial family. If the ancient Qilin Divine Dynasty is destroyed, how much foundation will it have left? Although the Flame Dragon Divine Dynasty is strong, the Black Tortoise lineage will not be afraid of them. Send someone to the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty and say, the Black Tortoise Divine Dynasty wants to join forces with them to resist this calamity. The Black Tortoise Emperor's eyes were deep and gloomy. What about Dalong? Ask him to lead the troops secretly and gather at the border of the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty. If the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty doesn't obey, attack this dynasty. The Flame Dragon Imperial family thinks that they can destroy the Black Tortoise Divine Dynasty just because they control two dynasties? Send a few spies to the ancient Qilin Imperial City. Once there is news, report back immediately. Now that the ancient Qilin Divine Dynasty was about to fall, if the Black Tortoise Emperor hesitated and missed the opportunity, it would be beyond redemption. Yes, the Black Tortoise Emperor waited until there was no one in the hall before he stood up and walked into the depths of the Imperial Palace. Now it would seem like this calamity wasn't something he could resist, and only by asking the various ancestors to make an appearance would he be able to stop Yin Luo. The four dynasties were in turmoil. This gamble, under Ling Zhao's scheme, became the beginning of the destruction of the various ancient dynasties. Once the gears of fate began to turn, it would be harder than ascending to the heavens to stop. At the same time, in the soaring Dragon Imperial City, Ling Zhao held a golden talisman in his hand as he looked at the majestic Imperial Palace in front of him. The overlapping shadow had already turned into Gu Yu's appearance and led the gone Heavenly Divine Sect's disciples to the Imperial Palace. Yin Luopa had taken away all the Saint Realm experts of the Flame Dragon Dynasty, leaving only the Flame Dragon Emperor to guard this place. Although most of the gone Heavenly Divine Sect's disciples were in the Venerable Realm, with Ling Zhao's secret protection, their lives would not be in danger. In that case, it was time to start reaping the fortunes. Ling Zhao's expression was gentle as he walked toward the Imperial Palace. At this time, Jin Yan's voice came from his soul sea. Young master, speak. The Black Tortoise Emperor has sent people here. He hopes to join forces with us to resist the Flame Dragon Dynasty. Tell them to get lost tactfully. When the Black Tortoise is exasperated, do this. Ling Zhao put away the golden talisman in his hand and disappeared in a flash. At this time, in a hidden corner of the Flame Dragon Imperial Palace, Chen Qingshan and the others were led by Gu Yu to hide in the dark. Commander Chen, the Imperial Palace's array is terrifying. With our strength, I'm afraid we'll explode if we touch it. Right? One of the Saint Realm experts from the gone Heavenly Divine Sect was shocked. Not to mention breaking the array, he felt an inexplicable sense of fear as he stood under the ancient array. You're looking down on our second Prince Gu Yu. He said he could lead us to the underworld plate. If he can't even break this array, how can he be worthy of being the Sky Demon's servant? Chen Qingshan sneered. At this time, his face was also covered by a ghost mask. The gone Heavenly Divine Sect's disciples' faces froze, their eyes filled with shock. The Sky Demon's servant. They did not expect the second Prince Gu Yu to be the Sky Demon's servant. Although the gone Heavenly Divine sect leader and the Holy Infant were using the Sky Demon's name to deceive the world, the gone Heavenly Divine Sect disciples were not ordinary people. However, these ordinary disciples did not know that the gone Heavenly Divine Sect had nothing to do with the Sky Demon. Therefore, the words Sky Demon's servant were extremely shocking to them. Chapter 1087. In a moment, I will use the treasure given by the Lord to open up a corner of this array. You all just need to head into the depths of the Imperial Palace and find the seal. I will stop the Flame Dragon Emperor with the other servants of the Lord. Stack Shadow turned around and looked at the people behind him. In the next moment, A playful look flashed in his eyes, and a ripple appeared in the void. An extremely weak and ethereal divine aura spread out and covered the array. Then, everyone was dumbstruck when they saw that a corner of the incomparably powerful ancient formation had actually been broken. "Let's go." Stacked Shadow took the lead and stepped into the array. The group of Sky-Gone disciples followed behind Chun Shan with shocked expressions as they rushed into the depths of the Imperial Palace. It was only after everyone had disappeared that Ling Xiao descended from the sky and landed in front of the Imperial Palace. At this moment, there was a ghastly look on his face. In his eyes, this group of Sky-Gone disciples was just a tool to record the evidence of Guyu colluding with the Sky Demon. When the time was right, Ling Xiao would pry open their souls and put an end to the chaos of the four dynasties. All right, to save time, everyone split up and searched for the seal of the Underworld Disc. Once you find anything, send me a message immediately. Chun Shan waved his hand, and the dozen or so Sky-Gone disciples immediately scattered in all directions. He and Stacked Shadow stood in place and waited quietly. It was only when a black-robed figure walked out of the void that the two of them bowed and said, "Greetings, Lord. Let's go." Ling Xiao's expression was gentle, and his face was veiled by the clouds as he walked into the depths of the Imperial Palace. At this moment, he could sense that there was an extremely terrifying sealing force spreading unrestrainedly from a hall in the distance. Obviously, that was where the Flame Dragon Divine Dynasty sealed the Underworld Disc. Boom! Boom! Soon, the Imperial Palace's Imperial Palace was filled with rumbling sounds. As the spiritual aura rippled, crimson-armored figures descended from the sky and blocked the dozen or so Sky-Gone disciples. What a joke! This was the Flame Dragon Imperial Palace. Even if the strongest were not here, how could a group of exalted realm cultivators barge in? Boom! In the Imperial Palace, a golden-robed figure stepped down from the sky and appeared above everyone's heads in the blink of an eye. At this moment, the Yin Emperor Monastery's face flashed with shock. The protective array of the Yin Long Divine Dynasty was personally set up by the ancestors. Even a heavenly sovereign might not be able to break it easily. But how did these rotten fish and prawns get in? Could it be that these demonic cultivators had been hiding in the Fire Dragon Emperor Palace all along? Speak. Who are you? We are the devil generals under the command of the Sky Demon. If you, Yin Long, are smart enough to hand over the Netherworld Plate, you might be able to protect the dynasty from destruction. In front of the crowd, the only Saint Realm expert snorted coldly. There was a hint of panic in his eyes. In the past, they had only been searching for blood spirits in secret. They had never seen such a scene. My Astra's king legs are starting to shake. However, the hierarch had said that if he fell into a desperate situation, he could not reveal the name of Gon Tian. If he used the name of the Sky Demon, he would be protected by the gods in the reincarnation cycle. Subordinates of the Sky Demon? The Yin Emperor Monastery frowned as he pondered. However, when he thought of Yin Zheng's death, the last trace of hesitation in his eyes disappeared. The Sky Demon was feared by the nine heavens, but he was also the enemy of the entire world. Now that the Yin Long wanted to conquer the four dynasties, he needed a convincing reason. Gu Lin had colluded with the Sky Demon, which was unforgivable. If he showed any weakness because of fear, it would be the beginning of the Yin Long's destruction. The Sky Demon, they should be killed. Capture all of them. At this point, the Yin Emperor Monastery's face flashed with a hint of coldness. No matter how these people broke the array, how dare a bunch of honorable realm ants cause trouble here? Boom! A vast scarlet radiance bloomed in the sky. One by one, the Yin Dragon Imperial Guards descended from the sky with sabers in their hands. Just a sheer number of them was enough to make the Gon Tian disciples turn pale. They were on the verge of breaking down. Buzz! However, just as everyone's eyes were filled with fear and confusion, there was a buzzing sound in the sky again. A figure surrounded by demonic radiance stepped forward and appeared in front of everyone. There seemed to be a demonic sun floating in his hand. He slashed upward and instantly enveloped the hundreds of Yin Dragon Imperial Guards. The moment the Yin Dragon Imperial Guards came into contact with the demonic sun, their bodies shattered. They let out miserable screams, which sure potions means it was more than enough to deal with a bunch of honorable realm cultivators. However, at this time, he only looked at the Yin Dragon Imperial Emperor with fear in his eyes. He said softly, "I'll hold them off for a while. You guys retreat first." My lord, the Gantian disciples' eyes trembled. They did not know who this person was. They did not even see his face clearly. However, just the demonic intent alone was enough to make them tremble in fear. This must be the sky demon servant that the second prince, Guyu, mentioned. "Follow me." In the distance, another figure in red armor appeared and shouted angrily at the crowd. The Yin Dragon Imperial Emperor was stunned. Then, he let out a resentful roar. "Yin Bai, how dare you betray me?" That's right. The figure in red armor was one of the guardians of the Yin Dragon Great Array. No wonder these rotten fish and shrimps could break the formation so easily. It turned out that there was really a traitor in the Yin Long Divine Dynasty. At this time, seeing Shur Patian and the Yin Dragon Imperial Emperor colliding in the sky, Ling Xiao let go and threw the real Yin Bai's body on the ground. "Qing Shan, do they have any talismans to contact Sect Master Gantian? The strongest in the Gantian Divine Sect is only a Saint Realm cultivator. Therefore, the Saint Realm cultivators are all commanders. They are in charge of dozens of disciples and are in charge of collecting blood spirits. There are 3 commanders who came down the mountain this time. One of them is one of them," Qin Shan said calmly as he pointed at a fleeing figure in the distance. "Xiong Huan, follow this person and find a chance to kill him. Qin Shan, don't show yourself during this time. Just collect blood spirits in secret." As soon as he finished speaking, Ling Xiao finally stopped hesitating and walked towards the ancient hall in the depths of the Imperial Palace that sealed the Netherworld disk. Boom! Boom! In the sky, Shur Patian looked gloomy as blood dripped from the corner of his mouth. The demonic technique he cultivated was overbearing, but his realm was much lower than the Yin Dragon Imperial Emperor's. Thus, in just a few breaths of time, he had suffered serious injuries. Buzz! At this time, a strange aura suddenly appeared in the depths of the Imperial Palace. The furious flame Dragon Emperor's expression froze almost instantly. Then, he no longer cared about the fleeing demonic disciple in front of him and rushed toward the source of the aura. Damn it! This group of venerables was just bait. Chapter 1088. Deep within the Fire Dragon Imperial Palace, Ling Xiao stood with his hands behind his back, looking at the ancient and majestic palace in front of him. Demonic runes flickered in his eyes as he thrust his palm forward. Boom! Instantly, red light circulated above the palace, forming countless mystical runes. An ancient and scorching aura gushed out, forcing Ling Xiao back a few steps. The Netherworld Plate was not only a mission for the 4 divine dynasties, but also the source of their inheritance. Now that the Sky disciples had fulfilled their mission, Ling Xiao naturally had to create an opportunity for them to escape and do some cruel things that would incur the wrath of both men and gods. When Ling Xiao needed them, he could suppress and control them at any time and search their souls. The Boundary Breaker Talisman was one of Ling Xiao's most precious trump cards, so he couldn't reveal it easily. He had only killed a Fire Dragon Imperial Guard and found the 4 generals guarding the seal in his Sea of Soul. Since Folded Shadow had impersonated one of them, both the Fire Dragon Imperial Guard and the Sky disciples would think that he had betrayed the Fire Dragon Imperial Guard and opened the array to receive them. There was no flaw. Boom! Ling Xiao could feel the aura of a 7th grade sage stage surging violently the moment the aura of the shrine spread out. It was rushing over at a terrifying speed from afar. Ling Xiao's eyes were calm as he turned to look at the golden-robed figure standing above him. The demonic light around him shone brightly, concealing his appearance. Demon, you're courting death. Even though Ling Xiao's demonic aura was terrifying, his aura was still not in the Saint Realm, so the Fire Dragon Imperial Guard didn't take him seriously at all. It seemed that he and the Patriarch had guessed correctly. The Sky Demon was still young, and the Gone Sky Divine sect was just a bunch of chickens and dogs, not worth mentioning. The Fire Dragon Imperial Guard stood proudly in the air with a gloomy expression. Emperor aura surged around him, making him look like a god of fire, exuding an insufferably arrogant aura. Is that so? Ling Xiao shook his head and chuckled. At that moment, ripples appeared in the air again. Overlapping shadow, Shi Patian and Xionghuan appeared one after another and bowed to Ling Xiao. Greetings, my lord. Among them, the overlapping shadow descended from the sky and handed an ancient stone seal to Ling Xiao. You dare to come back? The Flame Dragon Emperor frowned slightly. Although the people before him were all weaker than him in terms of cultivation, for some reason, he felt an extremely cold chill rising from the bottom of his heart. It was as if an invisible net had enveloped the entire spirit god realm. All of their guesses and judgments were merely controlled by someone else. How could this be? Is it done? Ling Xiao said indifferently. The three of them nodded immediately. The 4 Saint Realm experts who controlled the formation have been killed, but there are still some guards around the Imperial Palace. What? Hearing this, the Flame Dragon Emperor's face suddenly paled, and he looked at Ling Xiao in disbelief. The ancient formation's power was comparable to that of a heavenly supreme expert. It was impossible for him to activate it with his strength alone. Hence, there were still 4 Saint Realm experts in the Imperial Palace, guarding the 4 corners of the Imperial Palace to maintain the stability of the formation. Similarly, once the 4 of them died, the Flame Dragon Emperor would not be able to deactivate the formation with his cultivation level. Who are you? Take him down. Ling Xiao did not even look at the Flame Dragon Emperor. He waved his hand, and a black shadow suddenly broke through the air and pounced toward the Flame Dragon Emperor. Vaguely, an extremely eerie and strange aura flowed out, imprisoning heaven and earth and sealing the void. This is... The Flame Dragon Emperor's body trembled, and the cold arrogance on his face froze. At that moment, he could see a figure with a golden ghost face appearing in the air. The palm that was coming toward him was filled with extremely terrifying death chi and corpse intent. A corpse puppet? The Flame Dragon Emperor's expression changed drastically, and the flames around him instantly turned into an ancient armor that covered his entire body. Heaven and earth turned into a sea, and billowing flames swept out in all directions to destroy evil. However, in front of a heavenly supreme corpse puppet, even a 7th-grade Earth Sovereign expert could not withstand a single blow, let alone a 7th-grade Saint Realm expert. Crack! The moment Yizu's corpse puppet's palm touched the armor, a crisp shattering sound quietly rang out. Furthermore, before the overlord of the 4 dynasties could react, the flame armor at his chest had completely shattered. Yizu's corpse puppet's withered and strange palm directly pierced through his body and fell from the sky. Ling Xiao looked calmly at the figure hanging on Yizu's body. His eyes were clear, and there were suddenly thousands of soul inscriptions in the depths of his eyes. They directly swallowed Yizu's divine soul into his soul sea and destroyed it instantly. Plop! The entire process lasted less than 3 breaths of time. Even the Emperor of the Fire Dragon could not figure out how this insignificant young man had managed to control a puppet with the combat power of a heavenly sovereign. The foundation of the Flame Dragon Divine Court is in the main hall in the southeast. Go and clean it up, Ling Xiao said indifferently. Holding the Flame Dragon Emperor's corpse in his hand, he walked toward the ancient hall that sealed the Netherworld Plate. At this time, Fold Shadow, Shi Patian, and Xionghuan bowed and flashed toward the various golden palaces in the distance. After all, the experts of the Flame Dragon Divine Court had all left. The remaining experts in the Imperial Palace were at most Saint Realm experts. Fourfold Shadow and the other 2, they could kill them with a wave of their hand. Since it was an evil spirit causing trouble, it naturally had to look like one. The ancient array of the Imperial Palace had not been broken, and no one could escape. In this way, When the Flame Dragon Emperor returned to the Imperial Palace and saw such a tragic scene, he would be extremely surprised. In the end, the name of the Gone Sky Divine sect would be thoroughly known in the Azure continent after this massacre. The crueler the evil spirit, the more righteous the person who slaughtered the evil spirit would be. When this matter was over, Ling Xiao should also prepare to destroy this evil spirit. Buzz! Just as Ling Xiao stopped and looked at the ancient hall in front of him, a divine soul fluctuation suddenly came from his interspatial ring. Ling Xiao's eyes narrowed. He took out a sound transmission talisman and said in a deep voice, 13th Ancestor, what's the matter? Young Master, a small world sealed in the Realm Lord's palace has undergone a change. I suspect that a supreme treasure will appear in it. Ling Yuanqing's voice was low, but he could not hide his excitement. Now that the Realm Lord was missing, the supreme treasure that appeared in the Azure continent would not be able to escape the hands of the Ling people. Oh, what kind of change? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly, and a smile also appeared at the corner of his mouth. This small world is a little special. It's called the World of Dead Souls. In it, there are several evil races and demonic sects that the Realm Lord suppressed back then. In order to prevent them from breaking through, this world is shackled at the Saint Realm. Once a Supreme Being expert appears, the Heavenly Tao will collapse. Tens of thousands of years ago, the Ling people planted a vassal force to hide in it. According to the sect master, this world has been completely chaotic, and many demons have appeared. Spirit Qi revival? The smile on Ling Xiao's face grew wider. Finally, he had encountered this so-called symbol of chaos. Spirit Qi revival, demons have appeared, but he wondered how many leaks would appear this time. Chapter 1089. Young Master, do you want to send someone to the lower realm and release those evil sects? Ling Yuanqing smiled indifferently. The more chaotic the Azure world was, the more time it could divert the attention of the immortal forces and give Ling Xiao more time to grow. What's more, those evil sects had their ancestors killed by the Realm Lord and were suppressed for tens of thousands of years. Their hatred for the Realm Lord's palace was unimaginable. No, seal the news and don't let any forces know about this. Ling Xiao shook his head slightly, his eyes deep. Now that the world of death was in turmoil, many of the heavens will had yet to show their talents. What he wanted to do was to give them some time to grow and let them quietly stand out and amaze the world. At that time, he only needed to inquire a little and he would know who was the leek and who was the shrimp. Naturally, it would be much easier to harvest them in a lower realm. Even if the Spirit Qi was restored, the growth time of these heavens was extremely limited. Even if they had heaven-defying luck, how could they compete with Ling Xiao? Young Master, at most 1 year, the Realm Lord's palace will know about the turmoil in this small world. Ling Yuanqing pondered for a moment. According to his thinking, now that the world was in turmoil, it was the best time to take control. Although the strongest in this world was only in the Saint Realm, there was no lack of amazing people who suppressed their cultivation to avoid natural disasters. As long as such people were brought to the upper realm, their cultivation would definitely soar and step out of the shackles in one fell swoop. 1 year, that's enough. After 1 year, spread the news that this world's Spirit Qi is recovering and there's an immortal creation. It's very likely that it's the secret to becoming an immortal. At that time, the Realm Lord's palace won't be able to suppress the greed of the Azure World's forces. Ling Xiao's eyes flashed with a scarlet color. In 1 year, with his cultivation speed, he could kill anyone in the first level of the Saint Realm. At that time, the heaven's will of the upper realm and the heaven's will of the lower realm would gather together, comparable to the Manchu Han Imperial Feast. Yes, Ling Yuanqing didn't say much. Out of absolute trust in Ling Xiao, he believed that the young master must have his own intentions. Ling Xiao looked at the sound transmission talisman in his hand with a sincere smile on his face. The harder you work, the luckier you are. Boom! After that, he suddenly waved his hand and smashed Imperial Monarch Flame Dragon's corpse onto a complicated totem at the center of the hall. In an instant, Crimson light blossomed from the totem, and the flame dragon imperial monarch's corpse was rapidly withering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Roar! A loud and clear dragon roar resounded throughout the heavens and earth as the shadow of a flame dragon appeared in the sky. At the same time, the doors of the ancient palace opened with a loud bang. Ling Zhao's expression remained unchanged. With a thought, Ancestor Ye's corpse puppet stepped into the hall first. Now his two incarnations, the pure purple Qi Dao body, were in the ancestral land of the Ling people, confusing the world. The primal chaos immortal saint physique held the reincarnation demonic blade and collected blood souls along the path of the fire dragon army. Although the ancient palace's seal had been broken, he still had to be cautious. Only when Yizu's figure disappeared did Ling Xiao take a step forward and walk into the hall. This hall was almost the same as the one in the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty. The Greenstone Hall was filled with the scorching power of the sun, and at the end of the ancient palace, an immortal platform was emitting bright light to seal the evil thing. Ling Xiao called softly. A slender figure in a black dress suddenly appeared and stood in front of him. The divine power contained in this drop of God's blood was too vast. If the immortal had not been deceived by him and used his divine soul to suppress the power of the God's blood, Ling Xiao would have had to expend a lot of energy to seal it. However, since Ling had agreed to help, Ling Xiao would not let go of such an opportunity. Can you seal this God's blood? Ling Xiao's eyes were full of anticipation. He had always been curious about Ling's strength. That kind of strange fluctuation was different from spiritual power, soul power, and even principal power. It was extremely mysterious. I've said before, in this world, there's no power that I can't seal. Ling's expression was cold and indifferent, and before Ling Xiao could speak, she suddenly stretched out her hand. The underworld yin and sun energies that were originally intertwining in the hall suddenly stopped, and they actually began to decay and dissipate at a speed visible to the naked eye. This, even with Ling Xiao's temperament, he was in disbelief. This girl clearly did not have any cultivation. How could she control such terrifying power? Ling, what else is on the 9th level of the Glaze ancient pagoda besides the demon bone? There is also me. Ling's face bloomed with craftiness. She grabbed the god's blood and the broken underworld plate from the sky and threw them to Ling Xiao. Is there anything else? If not, I'm going back. Wait. Ling Xiao caught the two treasures and stored the drop of God's blood in the Ling people's ancestral token. Haha, Ling, this God's blood, there's still 2 drops. Look, don't even think about it. Do you want to fight me or not? As long as you can help me get these 2 drops of God's blood and the underworld plate, I promise I will fight you. Ling Xiao smiled gently and said in a seductive tone. Ling's eyes flickered with hesitation. In the end, she snorted and said, "You said it." Of course. Ling Xiao's smile widened. He waved at Ling. However, the instant he turned around, the eyes of the young girl behind him clearly flickered with a trace of indescribable grief. Her originally innocent and flawless face had a touch of vicissitudes that did not match her age. When the two of them walked out of the ancient hall, a strong smell of blood rushed to their faces. They saw Xiong Huan, Folded Shadow, and Shirpatian standing quietly in front of the hall. Their eyes were calm, and they were covered in blood. Master, the foundation of a Yanlong divine dynasty is here. Folding Shadow handed over a Qinquan bag to Ling Xiao. He looked at Ling in surprise, fear in the depths of his eyes. Lady Ling, Folded Shadow, go to the Black Warrior Divine Dynasty with Ling, Shirpatian, and Xiong Huan. Wait for my news and seize the sealed item. Ling Xiao said indifferently, but he seemed a little worried. With a wave of his hand, Ancestor Ye's corpse puppet appeared in front of them. Take this corpse puppet with you. Yes, Master. Folded Shadow's beautiful eyes trembled, and he bowed. What about you? Where are you going? Ling snorted and glanced at Ling Xiao. I'm going to the ancient Lin Divine Dynasty to persuade them to stop fighting. If they continue fighting, the dynasty will be gone. Ling Xiao smiled and took a step forward. His figure disappeared on the spot. It was best not to find a stunt double when it came to acting in person. Professionalism required an attitude. At the same time, in the ancient Lin border region, Chun Qingshan led a group of Gone Sky sect disciples along the city wall, collecting blood spirits along the way. At this time, the Gone Sky Divine Sect's only true Saint Realm commander had disappeared. The rest of the Venerable Realm disciples were terrified. Earlier, Ling Xiao had sent a message to him, asking him to lead this group of disciples to Auspicious Light City. It seemed like this game of chess was coming to an end. Commander Chun, where are we going now? Prince Guyu sent a message saying that the Yinlong Imperial City's treasure has been obtained. You have done a great service. Qin Qingshan's eyes were calm as he said in a low voice. Second Prince said that Master is very happy and will reward you with a heaven-defying fortune. Chapter 1090. The Fortune of Ascending to the Heavens. The Gone Sky disciples' fearful faces were instantly filled with excitement. Lord Sky Demon's promise? It seemed like they were going to strike it rich. Commander Chun, what should we do next? The second prince asked us to go to Auspicious Light City and take the ancient Qilin Divine Dynasty's Netherworld Disk. Once we succeed, all of you will be heroes of the world, and your names will be remembered in the Netherworld. Qin Qingshan's cold words instantly shocked all the disciples of Skygon. Although they didn't know what kind of merit it would be to have their names remembered in the Netherworld, they knew it was awesome. Commander Chun, what are we waiting for? Let's go. Okay, let's go. Qin Qingshan's personality was cold, but when he saw the eagerness on everyone's faces, he couldn't help but sneer. Originally, he was wondering how his master could tolerate the Gone Sky Divine Sect using the Sky Demon's name to cause trouble. But now, it seemed like retribution had come. In fact, Qin Qingshan had already guessed what would happen to these people and the Gone Sky Divine Sect leader. What he needed to do next was to wait for his master's order and lead these Gone Sky disciples into the trap. He would fulfill his promise and send them to have their names remembered in the Netherworld. Master, this chaotic world is finally as you wish. At the same time, in the Ling people's ancestral land, Ling Zhao's Dao body stood in front of the palace with a gloomy look in his eyes. Destitute Xiao had entered the realm and spent all his time traveling with Xiao Yu. He didn't have the heart to cultivate it all. Xin Yuan Weiyong and Yao Wang came out of seclusion one after another. It was obvious that they had calmed down from the Xiao clan's incident. Young master, the lady at the foot of the mountain left? Xin Yuan Weiyong walked to Ling Zhao's side and looked at the foot of the mountain in surprise. Ling Zhao's Dao body nodded indifferently. Now that the four dynasties were in chaos and had attracted a lot of attention, some forces in the azure sky would definitely take action. It was time for him to use his identity as the leader of the azure sky righteous path to quell this chaos. Young master, why do you look sad? Is there something troubling you? Xin Yuan Weiyong's beautiful eyes were chilly as she asked curiously. With this younger cousin's status, what could possibly make him reveal such a worried expression? Word has it that the Sky Demon's vassal is the chaotic spirit's divine realm. I plan to go there personally to investigate. Ling Zhao's Taoist body sighed softly. There was a sense of sadness circulating around his body. Even though it was just his back, Yao Wang, who was far away, could see the loneliness of caring for the common people. Sky Demon's vassal, spirit god realm? Could it be that this devil has his eyes on that evil treasure? You know that too? What surprised Ling Xiao was that at this moment, Xin Yuan Weiyong's beautiful face also revealed a hint of seriousness. Yes, when the evil treasure was sealed, the Xin Yuan clan was still an emperor bloodline of the human race. According to the ancestor of the clan, this evil treasure seems to be connected to another realm, where an evil race is sealed. Xin Yuan Weiyong pursed her red lips tightly. Her sudden melancholy actually made her look somewhat heroic. Connected to another realm? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. Although his expression was grave, there was a hint of a subtle smile at the corner of his mouth. Now it seemed that his guess was right. The gone Heaven Divine sect was collecting blood spirits and searching for the whereabouts of the Netherworld plate. It was most likely related to this evil race, Tying Netherchi. He wondered what this race had to do with Chun Qing Shan, the son of destiny. Suddenly, Ling Zhao's eyes trembled slightly. He had an extremely bold idea. If he couldn't find the whereabouts of the Realm Master in the end, perhaps he could force him to take the initiative to appear. That's right, young master. It's a very evil race. Xinyuan Weiyong nodded seriously. A gentle smile appeared on Ling Zhao's Taoist body's face. Then Weiyong, shall we go and stop this evil race from appearing? Okay. Xinyuan Weiyong smiled charmingly. There seemed to be thousands of stars blooming in her eyes, especially that handsome face that was so close to her. It made her Taoist heart tremble slightly. There was an indescribable throbbing in her heart. Perhaps, even if young master asked her to personally release that evil race, she would be willing to do so. Bodhisattva, what about you? Ling Xiao turned his head and looked at the beautiful figure in a white robe not far away. His expression was gentle. Amitabha, exorcising evil is the mission of the Buddhist sect. It's my duty to do so. Yao Guang's eyes were calm, like an ancient well without ripples. Around him, there was a faint golden lotus blooming, exuding supreme Buddha nature. In that case, there's no time to lose. Let's set off immediately. Ling Xiao nodded slightly and walked to the front of the Ling people's divine temple. He summoned 10,000 black devil guards, put them all into the ancient ship, and was about to rush to the spirit god realm. Young master. At this moment, Mi Dai's figure appeared from the void. She looked at Ling Xiao in surprise. Young master, where are you going? It said that there are traces of the sky demon in the spirit god realm. I'm going to take a look. Ling Xiao said indifferently. Mi Dai smiled charmingly. Young master, that's obviously an excuse used by the Yanlong Divine Dynasty to destroy Guilin. There's no need for you to go through so much trouble. I'll capture the ancestors of the 4 dynasties and let you search their souls. Before Mi Dai's voice fell, Ling Zhao's eyes suddenly flashed with a cold light. The former was stunned. She seemed to have understood something. She smiled embarrassedly. Young master, the 4 dynasties are the taboo of Qin Song. Why don't Mi Dai go with you? No need. Ling Xiao put away the ancient ship and took a step forward. His figure suddenly disappeared. Behind him, Xinyuan Weiyong and Yao Guang bowed slightly to Mi Dai and quickly chased after Ling Xiao. The spirit god realm was located in the northwest of Qin Song, adjacent to the Shenwu dynasty. Although the situation in the 4 dynasties was turbulent, it was not the most critical moment yet. Therefore, Ling Zhao's body was not in a hurry. Instead, he took a long detour and arrived at the Immortal Phoenix territory. Previously, Gue Ying had sent a message saying that someone had entered the Imperial Palace at night and wanted to attack Gu Chao Ci. However, he used a trick to expose himself and was captured by the strong cultivators of the Gu clan. It seemed that someone could no longer wait and wanted to secretly deal with Ling Xiao. In the Immortal Phoenix Palace, on the Dragon Throne, Gu Chao Ci was wearing a red emperor's robe. Her face was otherworldly. At this moment, there was a hint of hesitation between her brows. She looked coldly at the 2 figures kneeling in front of the palace. You're saying that you're from the Shenwu Imperial Censorate and came to the Immortal Phoenix Ancient Dynasty to do your job? That's right. I'm afraid the Empress has misunderstood. We entered the Immortal Phoenix Ancient Dynasty to investigate a serious criminal. This person is cunning and extremely dangerous. Lord Zhang and I have searched the entire Immortal Phoenix Ancient Dynasty, but could not find any trace of him. Therefore, I suspect that he is hiding in the Imperial Palace. One of them raised his head, revealing a determined and dignified face. At this moment, there was a hint of arrogance on his face. Obviously, he was sure that Gu Chao Ci would not dare to touch him. The Shenwu dynasty was in charge of thousands of dynasties in this region. Even if the Immortal Phoenix Ancient Dynasty had the Ling people behind them, they would not dare to touch the strong cultivators of this dynasty. Moreover, the Shenwu Imperial Censorate had the mission of monitoring the dynasties. Any vassal of the dynasty could not stop the Imperial Censorate from doing their job. In other words, even if the Imperial Censorate killed a strong cultivator of the immortal Phoenix Imperial Palace, they could escape punishment as long as they showed their identity. Emperor. Beside Gu Chaoxiai, a woman in silver armor presented an ancient token with both hands. This is the Shenwu Imperial Censorate's token. Haha, I told you it was a misunderstanding. Empress Gu, can we leave now? Misunderstanding? But, just as this person's voice fell, a ripple suddenly appeared above the hall. A figure in black descended from the sky. Her celestial beauty was unparalleled, and her temperament was unique. There was a gentle and bright smile on her face. Chapter 1091. Grand. An immortal phoenix guard shouted angrily. Just as he was about to draw his sword, an official beside him exclaimed, "It's Master Ling Xiao." Hearing this, the guard who drew his sword suddenly trembled. He actually knelt on the ground with a plop. Grand, righteous Master Ling Xiao. I finally meet the righteous Master Ling Xiao. Seeing this, a faint smile appeared on Gu Chaoxiai's pretty face. She looked in surprise at the figure descending from the sky. There was a sense of pleasant surprise. Yes, just a little. You just said that it was a misunderstanding? What misunderstanding? Ling Xiao was dressed in black. His expression was gentle as he lowered his head to look at the two Imperial Surveillance Department members who were about to get up. At this moment, he did not emit any aura at all. However, such a calm sentence caused the two of them to feel cold all over. They almost peed themselves on the spot. Ling Xiao's name was like thunder in the ears of the entire Azure Sky realm. Regardless of whether it was his fight against the Sky Demon, his righteous act of caring for the common people, or his protection of his lover and servant, the image of the young master of the Ling people was deeply engraved in everyone's hearts. The Xiao clan was a famous reclusive ancient clan in the Azure Sky realm. Compared to ordinary aristocratic families, the word reclusive was even more intimidating. Reclusive meant that they were mysterious and had accumulated a lot of resources. However, such a revered ancient clan had its young master killed in front of everyone a few days ago. As for the reason, it was because the young master of the Xiao clan had bullied one of Ling Xiao's servants. How ridiculous! Could it be that a lowly servant had a more honorable status than the young master of clan? Sigh, that was it. Therefore, there were already many descendants of ancient clans and immortal sects in the Azure Sky realm. They were looking forward to the day of the Lord of the Tao Heaven Palace's lecture to see if they could be fated to meet the young master of the Ling people. In fact, some saintesses from sacred grounds and ancient clans even saw the Lord of the Tao Heaven Palace's lecture as a chance to change their fates. Plop! Hearing the name Ling Xiao, the two men from the Imperial Censorate trembled and collapsed to the ground. Large beads of cold sweat flowed down his forehead, and the panic in his eyes could no longer be completely concealed. In front of Gu Chaoxiai, they might be able to rely on their status and pretend to be calm. But Ling Xiao. It was said that the crown prince of the Saint Spirit Immortal Dynasty, Ji Ering, was once engaged to Gu Chaoxiai, but was killed by this young master in public. Later on, it was revealed that this dynasty was related to the Sky Demon and was uprooted overnight by the divine martial emperor himself. Also, Shi Haoyan, the heaven's pride of the Shi clan, one of the 100 heroes of the human clan, had an unrivaled physical body. Just because he expressed his love for Gu Chaoxiai, his body was smashed and his danci shattered by this young master, and he was sent back to the Shi clan to recuperate. If not for the Shi clan's young master, Shi Yeshio's choice, this clan's ending might not be any better than the Saint Spirit Immortal Dynasty. The Silver Moon Heavenly Wolf was one of the 10 great demon lords in the extreme south. However, it was rumored that this demon lord used his own death to prove his innocence and shared his memories with the other 9 great demon lords. The reason was that the young master of this clan was suspected to be in cahoots with the Sky Demon in the Supreme Secret Realm and wanted to kill Gu Chaoxiai and Ling Xiao. Many things seem to be unrelated, but these people or forces that were destroyed all provoked Gu Chao Ci and then offended Ling Xiao. Haha, Master Ling Xiao, it's a misunderstanding, a misunderstanding. The two of us are from the imperial censorate of the divine martial emperor dynasty. We came to the immortal phoenix ancient dynasty to investigate the traces of the evil demon, not to praising the empress. The two of them took a deep breath and forced down the panic in their hearts and laughed embarrassedly. As they laughed and laughed, tears actually flowed down from the corners of their eyes. Not to mention the young master. Even I don't believe in such an excuse. A misunderstanding. Ling Xiao nodded indifferently. Since it's a misunderstanding, words are no proof. How about this? I'll see for myself. WH. What? The two of them were dumbfounded. But before they could react, they saw Ling Xiao stretch out his hand and pull one of the second-grade Sage Realm experts in front of him. Then his eyes flickered with soul marks. Buzz. A buzzing sound resounded. The Sage Realm expert didn't even have time to react before Ling Xiao forcefully invaded his soul sea. As Ling Xiao expected, there was a seal in this person's soul sea. The slightest touch would instantly shatter his entire soul sea. Spies like this had a lot of secrets. Since someone dared to make a move on Gu Chao Ci, how could they not have prepared in advance? Ling Xiao stopped after tasting it. He voluntarily withdrew his soul power and threw the Sage Realm expert, who was already paralyzed, to the ground. At this moment, his face was obviously a little pensive. The divine martial emperor shouldn't have the guts to do this. Since these two dared to appear in the immortal phoenix ancient dynasty as the divine martial imperial censorate, their motives were probably not as simple as they seemed. However, when this scene fell into the eyes of the crowd, many of the immortal phoenix powerhouses were stunned. A Sage Realm expert, although only a second-rank one, was captured by Ling Xiao so casually and search his soul. This young master's strength. This is the first time. I'll give the divine martial emperor dynasty some face. If there's a next time, no matter who it is, they'll all die. Get lost. Go back and tell the divine martial emperor that if there's really an evil spirit hiding in the immortal phoenix ancient dynasty, I'll send people to investigate. Ling Xiao snorted coldly and lifted his foot to walk toward the top of the main hall. Hearing this, the divine martial sage, who was originally confused, was suddenly stunned. He looked as if he had been pardoned. With the help of his companions, he rushed out of the hall. Guaying followed them. Ling Xiao's heart skipped a beat, and he used his soul to send a message. Seeing this, the immortal phoenix people were a little confused, but they didn't think too much about it. After all, the divine martial emperor dynasty was the most powerful force in the Azure continent. Ling people's young master was overbearing and protective, but he wasn't a murderous person. Plus, if these two really came to kill the evil spirit, they had good intentions. Master Ling Xiao forgave their rudeness. It was reasonable. Only Gu Chao Ci's lips curled into a charming smile. Based on her understanding of Ling Xiao, even if these two were really from the divine martial imperial censorate, they wouldn't be able to escape death today. Ling Xiao let them go. Most likely, he had other intentions. You can all leave. Gu Chao Ci waved her hand and dismissed everyone. She stared at Ling Xiao playfully, as if she was waiting for an explanation. Seeing this, Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. He stepped out and appeared beside Gu Chao Ci. He reached out and pulled her into his arms. My wife, why are you looking at me like that? What do you think? How would I know? Did you plan a spy around me? Or else why would you come so quickly? Gu Chao Ci hissed. She was about to break free when Ling Xiao pressed her down on the dragon chair. My wife, I am innocent. I originally wanted to go to the spirit god region to find the evil spirit. I passed by the immortal phoenix region and want to see you. What you said will hurt your husband's heart. Ling Xiao smiled warmly and lowered his head to kiss her gently. Let me go, woo-woo-woo. Ling Xiao, I have something to say to you, woo-woo-woo. Ling Xiao. Gu Chao Ci clenched her teeth, her face full of shame and anger. Just as she was about to fly into a rage, she saw that the youth in front of her had already stood up and retreated to the side. My wife, if you have something to say, feel free to say it. Ling Xiao smiled and looked like he wanted to continue. Gu Chaoxia finally took a deep breath and said coldly, I don't want to say it again. Oh, then it seems that my wife hasn't had enough. With that, Ling Xiao didn't care about the panic and anger on Gu Chaoxia's face and pushed her down on the dragon chair again. You, shameless woo-woo-woo. Chapter 1092. Ling Xiao. Let me go. I'll tell you. I'll tell you. Gu Chaoxia was so embarrassed that her face turned red. Although there was no one else in the main hall, there were guards standing outside the hall. Everything that happened here could not escape their senses. I'm afraid those two people are not from the Shenwu dynasty. Oh, how did wife see through it? Ling Xiao smiled. That's right. The Shenwu dynasty was an immortal inheritance and had a strong foundation. However, compared to the Ling people, it was still a far cry. Moreover, if the divine martial emperor really wanted to attack Gu Chaoxia, why would he be so bold as to send experts from the Imperial Surveillance Department? Oomph. If it was really the divine martial emperor, you would be on your way to the martial emperor city right now, right? Gu Chaoxia snorted. With Ling Xiao's personality, he would not let go of such a good opportunity to blackmail her. He purposely let the two people go because he wanted to find out the real mastermind behind this. Is this the so-called telepathy? Ling Xiao nodded gently. His gaze was gentle as he reached out to touch Gu Chaoxia's face. Stay in the Immortal Phoenix Palace for the next few days. Don't go anywhere. No matter who dares to attack you, I will not let them go. You came all the way to the Immortal Phoenix Palace just for this, right? Gu Chaoxia's eyes trembled, but she pretended to be calm. Why don't you believe me? Ling Xiao frowned. Do I have to die like last time before you believe me? Gu Chaoxia, there are always exceptions in this world. Wait until I find the Realm Lord and take control of the Azure World. I will summon all the creatures in the Azure World to congratulate us on our wedding. Ling Xiao waved his hand and took out an ancient scripture from his yin and yang ring. He placed it in Gu Chaoxia's hand and walked out of the hall. This scripture is called the Emperor Dao Dragon Scripture. It's an ancient martial art. It might be useful to you. That's right. When Ling Xiao killed Jiying, he had obtained this ancient reincarnation scripture. However, he had already devoured an ancestral dragon's true soul, and his dragon bloodline was naturally formed. So there was no need for him to cultivate this scripture. Since Gu Chaoxia had chosen the emperor's path, perhaps this classic would shine brightly on her. In this world, which woman would be able to resist such a sudden surprise? Moreover, when Ling Xiao had first appeared in the Supreme Being's remains, he had felt Gu Chaoxia's secret concern for him. It was clear that although this great Empress Immortal Phoenix always maintained an indifferent attitude, she was actually quite worried about him in private. Sector Master, from the very beginning, was the true threat in Ling Xiao's heart. Since this person was able to suppress the Azure Continent for 100,000 years with just the immortal devil Ancient Bell, one could imagine his talent and temperament. Now that he was hiding in the dark, Ling Xiao felt more and more afraid. However, with Ling Xiao's villainous setting, it would be difficult to find this person. However, Gu Chaoxia was different. She was the Lady of Destiny with close to 100,000 Providence points. If she wanted to find traces of the Sector Master, there might be some unexpected surprises. Gu Chaoxia's red lips trembled slightly, but in the end, she did not urge him to stay. That's right. Did she really have to wait for him to die in front of her before she could let down her last guard? Sector Master, huh? Gu Chaoxia's eyes suddenly flashed with a hint of coldness, and she gripped the ancient scripture tightly in her hand. Men, Emperor. Immediately, a female general in golden armor walked over and bowed to Gu Chaoxia. Bring me all the scriptures in the scripture depository regarding the Sector Master and the Sector Master's palace. Yes, outside the Immortal Phoenix Imperial City, two figures fled pathetically, their eyes filled with fear and relief. They only descended from the sky after they had escaped a few hundred miles away, landing in an ancient forest. Did that Ling people's young master find anything in your soul sea? Don't worry. Both our soul seas have been set up by the palace master. How could he break it? Then why did he let us go? He's probably worried about attracting the Xinwu Empire's hatred. After all, this Ling people's young master is domineering and has already offended many clans. However, just in case, it's best that we don't return to the Xinwu Empire to avoid being captured again. Let's go directly to that lord. Sigh. All right, I didn't expect that a mere Gu clan would not be able to complete the mission even with our concealment methods. Now that we've alerted the enemy, I'm afraid Lord's plan will have to be put on hold for a while. The two of them discussed for a while, then headed in the opposite direction of the martial Emperor's city. Thousands of miles in the sky, a black shadow was hidden in the clouds. A smile suddenly appeared on that sinister ghost face. There really is a ghost. At this moment, Ling Xiao was standing on a mountain far away. His expression was calm as he listened to the news sent by the ghost shadow. He was not surprised at all. However, he was curious as to who was so eager to jump out to court death. Young master, a clear shout suddenly came from afar. Xinyuan Weiyang and Yao Wang flew over from the sky. They looked at him in surprise. Young master, you've met praising the Empress? At this moment, the two women had different expressions on their faces. However, there was a look of understanding in their eyes. Yes, let's go. I'm sure the spirit god realm is in turmoil now. Ling Zhao's Taoist figure nodded indifferently. He lifted his leg and left. One day passed in the blink of an eye. Now, the entire spirit god realm was in chaos. The Flame Dragon Divine Dynasty and the ancient Qilin Divine Dynasty's conquest had caused tens of thousands of cultivators to die on the battlefield. On this day, the Flame Dragon Divine Dynasty's army finally reached the ancient Qilin Imperial City. This ancient dynasty that had existed for tens of thousands of years was about to be completely destroyed. At this time, at the border of the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty, a tall and sturdy young man in black armor was looking at the imperial city from afar. There was a solemn expression on his tanned face. Behind him, there were thousands of figures in battle armor standing quietly. Although there were not many of them, they were all emitting a strong aura of blood. Obviously, they were experts who had been on the battlefield for a long time. Dalong, why are you doing this? Just attack the Golden Crow Imperial City. Won't Jin Han be at your mercy? The void beside the young man in black armor suddenly rippled. Then, figures with ancient auras stepped out from the void. Each of them had a solemn expression on their faces. Imperial Father, although the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty is weak, its foundation is still there. With the Flame Dragon Ancestor's cultivation, for days have passed, and he still hasn't taken down the ancient Qilin Divine Dynasty. If the Black Tortoise Divine Dynasty attacks the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty, it won't end well. The young man in black armor was called Wu Kuei. He was the Black Tortoise Crown Prince, a monstrous genius second only to Yin Zheng in the four great ancient dynasties. As he was the eldest son of the Black Tortoise Emperor, his nickname was Dalong. The people of the Black Tortoise Divine Dynasty affectionately called him Wu Dalong. Dalong is right. In that case, you should go to the Golden Crow Imperial Palace personally. If that old woman still doesn't know what's good for her, I will personally lead the Black Tortoise Divine Dynasty and the Wu family's experts to flatten this dynasty. Before martial monarch Xian Wu could open his mouth once more, an old man in linen clothes and with a stubbled beard spoke indifferently. As his eyes opened and closed, a grand aura that shook the heavens and the earth flowed out from him. It was mysterious and unfathomable. It was heavy and majestic. Yes, ancestor, Dalong, I will go. Chapter 1093. Ha ha, is Jin Han here? A wild laugh came from the sky above the Golden Crow Imperial Palace. Then, a burly figure stepped down from the sky and stood above the palace, coldly looking at the many Golden Crow guards below. The Golden Crow Holy Dynasty had always been the weakest of the four holy dynasties. Moreover, Although the world did not know about the Golden Crow forefather situation, it was not easy to hide it from the top experts of the four dynasties. Therefore, in Wu Kuei's opinion, marrying Jin Han, to him was the only way out in this chaotic world. Otherwise, the Black Tortoise Divine Dynasty would not need to do anything. After the Flame Dragon Divine Dynasty destroyed the ancient Qilin Divine Dynasty, they would definitely suppress the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty with the power of the two dynasties, unifying the four dynasties and standing at the top. This was the common wish of the four emperors for tens of thousands of years. However, once the four dynasties were unified, someone would definitely be kicked off the throne, and no one would be willing to give up this honor. In recent years, the Flame Dragon Divine Dynasty and the Black Tortoise Divine Dynasty were growing stronger by the day, but they did not have a reason to invade Spirit Realm. Now, Yin Jing's death was just right. Of course, Wu Kuei did not believe that the Flame Dragon Divine Emperor would be so bold as to kill his son. However, Yin Luopa said that the ancient Qilin Divine Dynasty colluded with the Sky Demon. In Wu Kuei's opinion, it was pure nonsense and an exaggeration. How dare you? Who dares to be so presumptuous in the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty? Inside the Imperial Palace, countless golden armored guards were on standby, holding their sabers horizontally. Oomph. Are you all blind? You don't even know me? Wu Kuei snorted coldly. However, as soon as he finished speaking, he saw a flaming palm print shatter the void and fall from the sky, directly suppressing his body. Boom! The void crumbled, and boundless spirit light rippled. At this time, Wu Kuei's expression changed drastically. Clearly, he did not expect the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty to be so bold as to kill him before he could express his intentions. A wisp of divine light quietly bloomed. Demonic runes appeared around Wu Kuei's body, shattering the sky and turning into a turtle shell that blocked the golden palm print. Wu Kuei, do you know that flying the air in the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty is a great crime of looking down on the imperial power? A graceful figure dressed in feathered clothes slowly walked out from the divine hall. Her flawless face was filled with arrogance and indifference, especially that pair of faintly discernible slender jade legs. It caused one to feel the desire to sin, and it was difficult to shift one's gaze away. So it's on. The anger on Wu Kuei's face instantly disappeared and was replaced by an intoxicated expression. Wu Kuei, since this is your first offense, I will spare your life this time. Scram! Jean Hayner's brows furrowed slightly. She felt an indescribable sense of disgust, especially when she saw Wu Kuei wearing a tortoise shell and sticking his head out with a vulgar smile. Unknowingly, a figure seemed to appear in front of Jean Hayner's eyes. That figure was dressed in black and had a peerless beauty. It seemed that since the day she met him, there were two types of men in the world. One was him, and the other was others. You. Wu Kuei was stunned for a moment. Then he became angry. Although he was already used to Jean Hayner's insults and curses, it was different now. The lifeline of the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty was in his hands. No matter what, he had to force himself on her today. Jean Hayner, you better see the situation in front of you. Do you still think you are the high and mighty princess of the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty? Once the Yin Dragon Holy Dynasty destroys Gulin, the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty will be next. Oh, and then? Jean Hayner raised her eyebrows slightly, as if she did not take the Yin Dragon Holy Dynasty seriously at all. What a joke. The Golden Crow Holy Dynasty was no longer a dangerous dynasty swaying in the wind and rain. With the protection of the Lord Ling Xiao, even the Xinwu Dynasty could do nothing, let alone the Yin Dragon Holy Dynasty. Then, Wu Kuei stretched out his hand and touched his big black head, a blank look on his face. Why did the plot not develop as he had imagined? Jean Hayner, I had always valued the inheritance of the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty. Seeing that the Yin Dragon Holy Dynasty was about to attack, shouldn't she be crying and begging him to save her? Hayner, did you not understand what I said? The Golden Crow Holy Dynasty is going to be in big trouble. But you don't have to worry. As long as you agree to marry me, I will protect you with the power of the Black Tortoise Holy Dynasty. Wu Kuei puffed out his chest, and a confident smile bloomed on his face. Protect me? Just you? Get out of here before I get angry. Jin Han, said indifferently, turned around and was about to leave. Jin Han, don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. To tell you the truth, no matter what choice you make today, the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty is doomed. If you don't want the Golden Crows to be destroyed, you better leave with me now. Believe it or not, I can consign you to eternal damnation with one order. Wu Kuei's face was ferocious. He still could not figure out where Jin Han got her arrogance from. Even now, she was still disdainful of him. I don't believe it. Jin Han's face was cold. Her golden hair fluttered in the wind and shone with divine light. There seemed to be flames around her, exuding supreme divinity. You don't know what's good for you. Wu Kuei gritted his teeth. His eyes suddenly flashed red. He slowly raised his hand, holding a golden, ancient talisman, and said in a low and cold voice, Ancestral Patriarch, we can attack the Golden Crow Imperial City now. Buzz. Just as Wu Kuei's voice fell, a buzzing sound suddenly came from the void above them. Wu Kuei was stunned. Even Jin Han looked up warily. There was a ray of golden light above the vast blue sky. It was like the sun exuding divine light. In an instant, the entire Golden Crow Holy Dynasty seemed to be bathed in divine light. Endless Taoist rhymes surged and formed divine images. In the divine Woodstar Ocean, in the Imperial City, countless cultivators and citizens began to kneel and pray. Only Jin Han, and the guards of the Divine Palace looked solemn. There was a faint sense of fear in their eyes. So soon? Wu Kuei was also puzzled. However, such a commotion was most likely caused by the ancestral patriarch of his clan. Every action of these heavenly sovereigns could cause a phenomenon in the heavens and earth. Moreover, looking at the Tao rhymes and heavenly secrets contained in the phenomenon, other than the Black Tortoise clan's patriarch, how many people in the four dynasties could do it? Boom! However, just as the smile on Wu Kuei's face grew brighter and he looked up at the layers of phenomena, he saw that the void there suddenly collapsed. Then, a black shadow seemed to have pierced through the void. It descended from the sky and gently stepped on his head. Wu Kuei's face froze. He felt a huge force coming from his black head. Before the smile on his face disappeared, he fell from the sky and smashed a 1,000-foot-long crack in the square of the Divine Palace. Seeing this, Jin Han covered her red lips with her hand. Her beautiful eyes were filled with indescribable joy and excitement. Amidst the dust and smoke, a tall and straight figure in black clothes could be seen standing in the distant sky. Her eyes were cold, and there was a gentle and clean smile on her peerless and otherworldly face. There was a purple aura rising 30,000 miles from the east, and the divine light covered the sun. The Taoist rhymes of heaven and earth gathered in that young man's body. Chapter 1094. Where did this little tortoise come from? Ling Zhao's figure descended from the sky. Every step he took caused a trace of shock to appear on the faces of all the Golden Crows. Jin Han, in particular, could not hide the admiration in her eyes. Look, this is where the human race's true fortune lies. His looks are otherworldly. No, his Taoist aura is at its peak. His every move contains heavenly secrets. He has the charm of an ancient great emperor. Young master. Jin Han blushed inexplicably. She lowered her head bashfully. I didn't hurt you, did I? Ling Zhao nodded indifferently. At this moment, he could feel that an extremely obscure but terrifying aura was slowly awakening in the depths of the Arch Palace. It was obvious that Jin Yuyang's cultivation level had reached a new level after absorbing the vitality of the Fusang ancient tree. Young master, I'm fine. It's just nothing. Thank you for your concern. Jin Han was flustered, her face filled with panic. Previously, Ling Zhao's attitude towards her had always been that of someone high up in the air, untainted by worldly affairs. Even when she took the initiative to throw herself into his arms, she was humiliated and looked down on by him. Now that he suddenly showed concern, he felt an indescribable sense of honor and excitement. No wonder there had been rumors in the Azure continent recently. They said that although the young master of the Ling people was domineering, he was extremely protective of his Dao partners and followers. Jin Han had seen how protective he was of his Dao partners. Gu Chaoxiai's cold arrogance still lingered in Jin Han's mind. As for followers, it seemed that a god emperor of the Shao clan had been imprisoned and tortured by the young master of the Shao clan. In the end, Master Ling Shao drove the profound, heavenly ancient ship and led 10,000 demon guards to almost destroy the Shao clan. Now, there were rumors in the Azure continent that countless young masters of the ancient clans had vowed to work hard to recognize Ling Shao as their master on the day of the Dao Heaven Manor Master's lecture. It seems that I don't need to work hard anymore. I'm already the young master's servant. Oh. Ling Zhao's eyes were cold as he looked at the shy and reserved young girl in front of him. There wasn't the slightest ripple on his face as he turned to look at the crack in the middle of the square. Suddenly, a figure crawled out with difficulty. Blood dripped from the corner of his mouth, and there seemed to be an obvious blood mark on his head. 5,000 Providence, 7th grade of the Exalt realm. At this moment, Wu Kuei only felt dizzy and had a dumbfounded look on his face. But when he saw the bashful Jin Han not far away, the anger on his face suddenly froze. Even his mouth was agape to an exaggerated degree. He was the only one who was outrageous. Was that Jin Han? The number one beauty of the 4 dynasties who was arrogant and never put men in her eyes? What was she doing? What was with those ripples in her eyes? Wu Kuei's lips trembled as he stared blankly at the black-robed figure in front of Jin Han. It was a young man with an immortal aura and a handsome face. With just a glance, Wu Kuei's body trembled, and a strong sense of unease rose within him. However, he was just a bootlicker, not to mention an unknown young man. Even if the person standing in front of Jin Han was a supreme being, he wouldn't feel the slightest bit of fear. After all, there were several supreme beings standing behind him. Just now you stepped on my head. Wu Kuei's expression was ferocious as he roared in anger. You dare to take in my maid? Ling Shao raised his eyebrows slightly, but there was a faint smile on his face. At this time, the layered shadow had sent news that everyone had arrived at the Black Tortoise Emperor Palace, with Feng Ling and Ancestor Ye's corpse puppet accompanying them. The Black Tortoise Emperor Palace's nether plate and divine blood were already in Ling Zhao's pocket. Now, only the ancient Qilin Emperor Palace was left. However, Ling Zhao planned to use another method to obtain the nether plate. After all, once the incident in the Black Tortoise and Flame Dragon dynasty spread out, not to mention the Spirit God realm, the entire Azure Sky world attention would fall on the ancient Qilin dynasty. At that time, the Gon Sky Divine Sect and Prince Guyu would take full responsibility for this incident. As for Ling Zhao, he would be the light of righteousness that calmed the chaos and suppressed the evil spirits. With that, what confidence did the ancient Qilin Emperor Palace that was almost destroyed by the Flame Dragon ancestor have to seal the evil spirit? As long as Ling Zhao expressed his desire, they would probably hand over the hot potato to him with both hands. This was the essence of the plan. There were some opportunities that were offered willingly, so as not to arouse suspicion. Your maid! Wu Kuei's expression that had just revealed a moment ago was instantly extinguished. He stared blankly at Jin Han, trying to find a trace of resentment on her face. However, there was none. In fact, there was a kind of pride and shyness. What the F***CK? This is ridiculous. The cold goddess that I've pursued for more than 100 years is now willing to be taken in as a maid, and she looked so honored. Although Jin Han was not in the sequence, she was still one of the top 100 talents. Her talent and appearance were top-notch. Who is this young man to be able to tame such a talented girl like Jin Han? Wait a minute. His hair was tied up in a black robe, and he had the face of an immortal. Could this be the legendary young master of the Ling people? Gulp. Suddenly, Wu Kuei felt a chill run down his spine. If not for his dark complexion, he would have turned pale by now. I didn't know she was your maid. Please forgive me, young master. With Ling Zhao's status, even the Shinwu Crown Prince would have no chance of survival if he provoked him, let alone the Black Tortoise Crown Prince. No wonder. This Jin Han was fearless and did not take the Flame Dragon Divine Dynasty seriously at all. It turned out that she had cozied up to Ling Zhao. Snatching someone's maid could be a big or small matter. It depended on how the young master of the Ling people saw it. Forgive me? Although I, Ling Zhao, have a gentle temperament and do not like killing, I am not someone who can be humiliated by anyone. Today, you've snatched my maid, and you can say that you forgive me. Tomorrow, someone will snatch my wife and concubine, right? Ling Zhao said calmly and shook his head. Wu Kuei was stunned when he heard that. Then, he saw the Dao patterns in Ling Zhao's eyes surging. Without hesitation, he turned around and fled into the distance. At this moment, he could feel that Ling Zhao already had killing intent towards him. Wu Kuei was confident that with his strength, even if Ling Zhao wanted to kill him, he would not be able to. However, this was the Golden Crow Imperial Palace. Once the Golden Crow clan's experts made a move, he would most likely die. The Patriarch and the others were already on their way. He had to hurry and tell everyone that the young master of the Ling people was here. Otherwise, the Black Tortoise Divine Dynasty would face a disaster 10,000 times more dangerous than now. Trying to leave? Ling Zhao stepped forward with a gentle expression. Suddenly, time stopped and the void froze. There seemed to be a sea of stars under his feet. Jin Han-er's smile widened when she saw that. Did you see that? This is the young master that I, Jin Han-er, want to submit to. With just a look, he can make these so-called peerless geniuses of the four dynasties flee. Young master is standing up for me. Chapter 1095. Boom, boom. Thunderclouds were descending from the sky. Ling Zhao struck out with his palm, trapping the blue sky and destroying the heavenly Tao. Wu Kuei was surprised. He raised his head to look at the black-robed figure that had appeared above his head. His eyes flashed with terror. He could see that there were rays of light shooting out from Ling Zhao's palm. There were thousands of Tao runes on it. The void shattered layer by layer, causing countless dark and deep cracks to appear in it. Even a true Saint Realm expert would find it hard to resist the divine force contained in that palm strike. Damn it, how can he be so strong? Black Tortoise, Heavenly Divine Mark. Wu Kuei roared. The tortoise shell behind him suddenly emitted a golden light. The originally black tortoise shell turned golden in an instant, as if it was made of gold. It exuded an indestructible aura, especially the mysterious runes that intertwined on the shell. They seemed to contain the power of heaven and earth, giving it a divine charm. Boom! The palm strike fell from the sky and crushed Wu Kuei's figure. The entire Golden Crow Imperial Palace was shattered, and dust rose into the air. Ling Zhao's figure landed beside Jin Han, a look of surprise on his face. At this moment, he could feel that an extremely terrifying blood qi was gradually surging from the place where the smoke and dust filled the air. Clearly, the little tortoise did not die under his palm strike. Instead, it displayed an even more powerful battle prowess. Ling Zhao did not use his full strength in that palm strike because the Black Tortoise Divine Dynasty's ancestors had yet to arrive. If he wanted to enrage them and control them, he would have to kill this person in front of them. However, Ling Zhao suddenly changed his mind. Is this Black Tortoise Crown Prince very strong? Ling Zhao turned to look at Jin Han. The girl's eyes were watery, and her teeth were biting her red lips. She was looking at him in a daze. Young master, he's so strong. Jin Han-er's body trembled when she saw Ling Zhao looking at her. She had just finished speaking when she came to her senses. Her face flushed red. Young master, you talking about Wu Kuei? No matter how strong he is, wasn't he still casually crushed by young master? Is the bloodline of the Black Tortoise clan so tenacious? Ling Xiao frowned slightly. If the Black Tortoise lineage's defense was this strong, then he didn't need to choose this little tortoise to tame. Wouldn't it be much easier to just capture the old one? No, young master. It is said that this Wu Dalong has awakened the Black Tortoise clan's divine bloodline, which is able to create an illusory natal heavenly armor. Even a saint would find it difficult to break through its defenses. Jin Han shook her head. However, when she saw the sinister smile in Ling Xiao's eyes, she felt a chill in her heart. She didn't know why, but even though she was standing right beside Ling Xiao, she always felt that this young master was as different as heaven and earth from her. Wu Dalong, Puchi, you should take your medicine. Ling Xiao's eyes were clear and cold. Through the thick smoke and dust, he looked at the figure that stood up in a sorry state. At this moment, Wu Kuei was bathed in blood. Although his aura was weak, there were streaks of blood patterns on his golden shell. These patterns were ancient and complicated. They were like living creatures that had devoured the spiritual power in his hand seal. Furthermore, Ling Xiao could feel that the tortoise shell had become more tenacious and heavy after devouring the spiritual power. In other words, if he couldn't kill Wu Kuei quickly, he would be killed by him in the end. In this case, if this tortoise shell... No, if he refined Wu Kuei into a magic treasure, wouldn't its power be terrifying? Moreover, Wu Kuei was only at the venerable realm now. Once he broke through to the supreme being realm, my spiritual treasure has a life of its own and can be upgraded? What? You're asking how to make Wu Kuei obedient and cultivate with all his might? I have countless elixirs from the Hall of Medicine. Even if I feed him, it will be enough for him to break through to the Supreme Being realm. Do you believe me? Puchi. After the smoke and dust dispersed, Wu Kuei looked at the two figures not far away with a ferocious expression. At this moment, the entire imperial palace was surrounded by guards. It would be almost impossible for him to escape. However, just as Wu Kuei was frowning and trying to come up with a solution, he saw a gentle smile on Ling Xiao's face. And this smile actually caused a true sense of death to emerge from the bottom of his heart. Before Wu Kuei could react, Ling Xiao took a step forward. His figure pierced through the void and appeared in front of Wu Kuei. At this moment, Wu Kuei could feel that there were countless powerful auras descending from the void. Obviously, the Black Tortoise Divine Dynasty's experts had arrived. No, Wu Kuei's lips trembled. The words that reached his mouth turned into a desperate roar. For some reason, as he watched the peerless figure in black gradually approach, the Black Tortoise Crown Prince didn't dare to have the slightest thought of resisting. Especially the two black moons in Ling Xiao's eyes. They were like the deepest abyss in the world. Once his gaze fell, he would be consigned to eternal damnation. Stop! Suddenly, an angry roar resounded in the sky. However, just as the Black Tortoise ancestor stepped out to stop Ling Xiao, a loud and clear cry rang out from the depths of the imperial palace. Then, a towering divine flame rose into the sky and burned the void. A golden figure stepped out from the horizon. She stretched out her jade-like hand and pushed back the thousands of Black Tortoise Divine Dynasty's experts. Puchi. Even the Black Tortoise Divine Emperor, a seventh-stage, Saint-stage expert, was sent flying while vomiting blood. The Black Tortoise ancestor's eyes trembled. He clenched his fists and collided with the jade-like hand. Boom! The blue sky exploded. The divine power of golden flames swept across the world and destroyed the sky. The Golden Crow Imperial Palace shattered and collapsed to the ground. At this moment, Ling Xiao's figure finally arrived in front of Wu Kuei. The soul light in his eyes suddenly shone brightly, intertwining into a seal and falling on Wu Kuei's soul sea. Brat, how dare you? The Black Tortoise Divine Dynasty's experts were stunned. Then they shouted angrily. However, the moment they finished speaking, the divine soul attack had already disappeared in an instant. It shattered Wu Kuei's soul sea, and he was bleeding from his 7 orifices. He was in a miserable state. However, the strange thing was that Wu Kuei's vitality was not extinguished. It was just that the light in his eyes had already dissipated. He had been turned into a retard by Ling Zhao's seal. You're courting death. Jin Yuyang, how dare the Golden Crow divine dynasty cripple my crown prince? Today, I'll bury your entire lineage with him. The black tortoise ancestor roared angrily, and the supreme aura on his body slowly recovered. How could a heavenly sovereign who was at the same level as him make the black tortoise ancestor fearful? On the other hand, the young man who had crippled Delang was rather extraordinary. However, just as the black tortoise ancestor was muttering to himself, Jin Yuyang's face curled up into a cold smile. Then, her aura suddenly began to rise. Boom! The vast heavenly aura stirred the clouds in the divine dynasty and turned the world upside down. Tribulation clouds gathered thousands of miles away. Wind and lightning flashed, and there was an inexplicable sense of annihilation. Third grade heavenly sovereign. The black tortoise ancestor and the rest of the black tortoise divine dynasty's experts' faces changed. Their eyes were filled with shock. It should be known that the Flame Dragon Divine Dynasty had dared to attack Gulin so recklessly because their ancestor, Yin Luopa, was the only 3rd grade heavenly sovereign in the 4 dynasties. Even if it was only a difference of 1 grade, it was a world of difference in the peak realm. How could it be? How could Jin Yuyang suddenly break through to the 3rd grade realm? Chapter 1096. Gulp. Heaven and earth fell silent. The black tortoise experts all had complicated expressions on their faces. It was as if they had walked right into a trap. That was ridiculous. An old woman who was nearing the end of her lifespan had broken through to the next realm before the fall of the divine dynasty. Do you think you're the chosen one? How dare you break through before you die? Jin Yuyang, don't think that you could do whatever you want just because you've broken through to the next realm. What did my great-grandson do to be beaten into a retard by the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty? If you know what's good for you, kill that young man first, and then we'll talk. The black tortoise ancestor snorted and looked down at Wu Kuei, who was rolling on the ground with a silly smile on his face. His eyes were cold. The black tortoise Divine Dynasty had 2 earthly sovereigns. The Golden Crow Divine Dynasty only had 1 earthly sovereign. Even if the 2 dynasties were to fight, Jin Yuyang, who had just broken through, would not be able to change the situation. The battle between the Flame Dragon Divine Dynasty and the Ancient Qilin Divine Dynasty was coming to an end. Once Yin Luo Pe killed the Ancient Qilin Divine Ancestor, the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty and the Black Tortoise Divine Dynasty would be next. At this juncture, the black tortoise ancestor did not believe that Jin Yuyang would dare to make an enemy out of him. However, what surprised the black tortoise ancestor was that Jin Yuyang only smiled and shook her head. She descended from the sky and stood in front of the young man in black. Then, under the shocked gazes of the black tortoise experts, she bowed down to the young man. Young master. That's right. Ling Xiao nodded and stepped on Wu Kuei, who was crawling on the ground. He looked up at the black tortoise ancestor and said, "He stole my maid. Is that reason enough?" At this moment, Ling Zhao's voice was extremely calm, as if he was talking about something insignificant. But it was this calmness that made people feel even more fearful and unfathomable. Who is he? You. The black tortoise ancestor's lips trembled. He did not dare to spit out the harsh words that were on the tip of his tongue. He had thought that the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty was so arrogant because Jin Yuyang had broken through to the next realm. They thought that they were qualified to compete with the Flame Dragon Divine Dynasty. However, it seemed that the young man was the key to the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty. Could it be that Jin Yuyang's breakthrough was because of this young man? Otherwise, why would a heavenly sovereign bow down to a young man? Who are you? Did you just say that you will definitely kill me today? Ling Xiao shook his head with a gentle expression. I'll give you 2 options. You can either submit or die. What? The black tortoise ancestor's expression changed drastically. Arrogant, simply arrogant to the extreme. How could a young man in the venerable realm ask the patriarch of the divine dynasty to submit to him? Even the young master of the Realm Lord Palace, the young master of Ling people, probably did not have such qualifications. Impudent! Emperor Xian Wu shouted angrily. However, just as he finished speaking, he saw Jin Yuyang frown and directly thrust out her palm. Buzz! The void trembled as an extreme aura of the great Tao began to rise. A blazing divine seal crushed the void and pressed down on Monarch Xian. The saintly aura on the latter's face had not yet dissipated, but it turned into a strong sense of fear. Patriarch, save me! Jin Yuyang, do you really want to fight with me? The black tortoise ancestor's eyes widened as he took a step forward and blocked the palm print. Around him, wisps of divine light bloomed and connected out of thin air, turning into the phantom of a demonic beast that exuded an extremely ancient and terrifying aura. Boom! However, the moment the palm print fell, even the black tortoise ancestor's body trembled violently, and his eyes were filled with extreme horror. His face turned red, and the aura in his body surged crazily, completely solidifying the black tortoise true shadow. Even so, a trace of blood slid down the corner of his mouth. How could it be? Although he had been careless just now and did not take Jin Yuyang's casual palm print seriously. However, even if it was Yin Luopa, it would not be so easy to hurt him. What secrets were hidden in Jin Yuyang's body? How could her cultivation have broken through to such a level in such a short time? The Fusang divine tree was originally the ancestral spirit of the nine heavens. Moreover, the Golden Crow bloodline had a very deep relationship with this tree. Not only did the divine tree allow Jin Yuyang's cultivation to enter the third grade, but it also transformed her bloodline and gave her the true demonic aura of a crow. Buzz! Suddenly, there was the sound of wind breaking in the void in the distance. One by one, figures with powerful auras stepped from the sky and stood behind the black tortoise ancestor. These 1,000 people were the true war generals of the divine dynasty, and the weakest among them had already entered the honorable realm. In front of the crowd, two old men appeared from the void. Their auras were vigorous, and they were clearly two earthly sovereigns. Just now, the black tortoise ancestor had led a group of saints to descend, intending to intimidate the Golden Crow holy dynasty without shedding a drop of blood. After all, once these 1,000 people were displayed, it would be a clear provocation. However, he did not expect Jin Yuyang to be so ruthless and use a real killing move. Humph! Jin Yuyang, you have to think carefully. Seeing that the crowd had arrived, the black tortoise ancestor's face immediately turned cold. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and looked indifferently at Jin Yuyang and the tall and straight youth in black. Did I not make myself clear? Ling Xiao raised his head. His eyes were clear, and there seemed to be doubt between his brows. Humph! Young man, no matter who you are, since you dare to cripple my black tortoise crown prince today, leave your life behind. The black tortoise ancestor took a deep breath and suddenly raised his hand. However, just as he was about to give the order to attack the Golden Crow holy dynasty, the sky above his head suddenly darkened. The entire Golden Crow holy dynasty fell into the night. Everyone's faces were filled with confusion. Then, they slowly raised their heads and looked up. There, they saw a huge, ancient battleship crushing the void, as if it had come to end the era. That deep and terrifying aura almost made the black tortoise ancestor's face turn pale instantly. This is the mysterious heavenly ancient battleship. It's the mysterious heavenly ancient battleship of the Taigu Ling people. How can it be? Why would the Taigu Ling people suddenly come to the spirit god realm? When the black demon guards go to war, not even a blade of grass will survive. It is said that when they appeared in the Shao clan, they destroyed an entire realm. Nonsense. This is simply a rumor. It's clear that he wiped out 10 realms. Exclamations of shock rose and fell. Even Jin Yuyang and Jin Han, Er's beautiful eyes flickered with a wisp of shock. Everyone in the Azure Sky world knew about the mysterious heavenly ancient battleship, but no one had truly seen it before, because almost everyone who had seen it was dead. It was rumored that this battleship was thousands of feet long and could travel through time and space, destroying the universe. It was the symbol of the Black Demon Guard's divine might. But, suddenly, the Black Tortoise ancestor seemed to have thought of something. He looked at the youth in black below, with fear in his eyes. At that moment, a smile appeared on Ling Zhao's face, but the sinister look in his eyes was like the true evil of hell. Gulp. Chapter 1097. Don't tell me you are Master Ling Zhao. The Black Tortoise ancestor's eyes trembled, and his face turned pale. Everyone in the Qing Song continent knew about the young master of the Ling people. Even the reclusive ancient clans and sects knew that the Ling people had a young master named Ling Zhao, who was unparalleled in the world. However, why did he suddenly come to the spirit god realm and have something to do with the Golden Crow? The Black Tortoise ancestor felt a chill in his heart. His body tensed up, and his soul consciousness covered thousands of miles. He was very afraid that an ancient order would suddenly appear in the sky and kill him on the spot. When Ling Zhao was born, the scene of a supreme being of the Ling people killing ancestor Yi from thousands of miles away was engraved in the hearts of countless heavenly sovereigns in the Qing Song continent. Such a celestial aura could be called a demonic barrier, and it made everyone who offended Ling Zhao unconsciously feel fear. Kill. Seeing the panic on the Black Tortoise ancestor's face, Ling Zhao's eyes did not waver, and he only spoke calmly. Suddenly, the void collapsed, and divine light bloomed around the 10,000 demon guards. They were densely packed and looked like a single entity. Layers of killing intent gathered in one place, and it was as if an ancient demon god had awakened from a deep sleep with boundless battle intent. Even the Black Tortoise ancestor and the other two heavenly sovereigns were trembling. When they lowered their heads to look at Jin Yuyang, their eyes suddenly flashed with panic. At that moment, the Golden Crow ancestor took a step forward, and 1,000 feet around him was engulfed in divine flames, turning into a sea of fire that covered the sky and earth. The deep and brilliant demonic flames were filled with an extremely violent and destructive aura. Even a Saint Realm cultivator would be burned to ashes if they were to touch even a wisp of it. Kill. The 10,000 demon guards shouted angrily and held their halberds horizontally. The grand aura of slaughter rumbled as it descended, and it transformed into a 300 long demonic halberd that swept through the surroundings and cleared the surroundings. Wait a minute. Seeing the halberd in flames fall, the last trace of hesitation in the Black Tortoise ancestor's eyes disappeared, and he immediately shouted angrily. A third-grade heavenly sovereign was already a huge threat to the Black Tortoise. If they offended Ling Zhao now, the Black Tortoise divine dynasty would be completely destroyed. Upon hearing this, Ling Zhao gently raised his hand. The descending demonic halberd of fighting will immediately stopped in the air. Jin Yang's footsteps also stopped. Master Ling Zhao. The Black Tortoise old ancestor took a deep breath and bowed towards Ling Zhao. I didn't know that young master was here today. My dynasty's crown prince forcefully snatched eldest princess Han, and he truly deserved to die. Just now, this old man spoke inappropriately and offended young master. This is also an unforgivable crime. However, I heard that young master is a righteous person. I hope that young master can give him a way out and forgive Black Tortoise. Wu Cheng will definitely remember young master's kindness. When the sky demon descended, I came here to slay it. I didn't expect your Black Tortoise divine dynasty to be so arrogant. Not only did you snatch my maidservant, you even want to kill me here. This is really an eye-opener for me. Ling people have never used their power to bully others, but when the world bullies me, it is unforgivable. Ling Zhao's tone was calm, but the words he said made the Black Tortoise divine dynasty's experts' faces turn ugly, and they felt guilty. The young master's righteousness was known throughout the world. Now, he came here to slay the sky demon, but he was repeatedly humiliated by the Black Tortoise Divine Dynasty's experts. Not to mention the Ling people's young master. Anyone with a backbone would not be able to swallow this resentment. Young master, my Black Tortoise Divine Dynasty is willing to offer 100 spiritual treasures and 10 cultivation techniques in hopes of appeasing young master's anger. The Black Tortoise ancestor's real name was Wu Chong. He was the only expert among the 4 dynasties who could contend against Yen Luopa. However, when facing the young master of the Ling people, there was no trace of arrogance on his face. Compared to the Yin Dragon Divine Dynasty and the Sky Demon's vassal hiding in the dark, the young master in front of him was the truly terrifying existence. I've said it before. Submit or die. Ling Xiao shook his head slightly, his expression cold. 100 spiritual treasures? 10 cultivation techniques? Ancestor, your dynasty is gone. Ancestor, why don't we submit? With young master here, the Yin Dragon Divine Dynasty won't dare to act rashly. The Black Tortoise Divine Dynasty was facing a situation where they had a slim chance of survival. Even if Ling Xiao wasn't here, Jin Yuyang alone was enough to make them suffer heavy losses. So, what could they use to contend against the Yin Dragon Divine Dynasty? This, Wu Chang's mind raced, especially when he saw Jin Yuyang's respect for Ling Xiao and her inexplicable breakthrough in her cultivation. His eyes flashed with a strange light. Then, he gently nodded and descended from the sky, standing in front of Ling Xiao. The Black Tortoise Divine Dynasty is willing to be a vassal of the Ling people. Old ancestor, I'm afraid you've misunderstood. What I'm saying is that you'll be my servant, not my subordinate. Ling Xiao smiled warmly, but it caused Wu Chong to be stunned. His lips trembled slightly, but he didn't know what to say. Rejecting him now was no different from courting death. However, as a heavenly sovereign, he had been reduced to a servant. It was simply a great humiliation. Wu Chong, submitting to the young master might be a turning point for your immortal path. Jin Yuyang said indifferently, but the meaning behind her words was obvious. At this moment, she was basically telling this Black Tortoise ancestor that her breakthrough was due to the young master's grace. Good. Wu Chong is willing to submit to young master. In the end, the Black Tortoise ancestor nodded silently. Sure enough, some people were born to be above everyone else. And some people, no matter how hard they tried, still couldn't escape the evil thoughts of the world. The Great Tao is just. What a joke. Open your soul, see. Don't resist. Ling Xiao used his divine soul to send message. There seemed to be tens of thousands of soul runes in his eyes that instantly sank into Wu Zhong's soul sea. Accompanied by a buzzing sound, Wu Chong's face suddenly showed a look of confusion. Then, he felt an inexplicable divine power controlling his mind. Emperor, ancestor, not good. Suddenly, a cry of alarm came from the void in the distance. A figure in battle armor flew over from the horizon. His body was covered in blood, and his aura was extremely weak. The Black Tortoise Emperor's heart thumped. With a face of shock and anger, he said, "What happened? Emperor, a demon barged into my Black Tortoise Emperor palace, broke the seal, and took away that divine item." What? The Black Tortoise Emperor's face turned pale. He turned to look at Wu Chong with a fearful expression. Ancestor, what happened? Ling Xiao frowned slightly. His expression was solemn. Young master, a demon broke the seal of my Black Tortoise Emperor palace and took away that evil item while we were here. Wu Chong sighed softly. He already had a guess in his heart. Most likely, the rumors that were circulating in the Black Tortoise Emperor palace these few days were spread by someone on purpose. Their goal was to lure everyone to attack the Black Tortoise Emperor palace and get a chance to snatch the treasure. At that time, the Black Tortoise Emperor palace and the Black Tortoise Emperor palace would both be injured, and they would be able to reap the benefits. What a vicious plan. However, The Black Tortoise Emperor Palace had no choice but to send out all the Flame Dragon Emperor Palace's experts. Evil item? Tell me the ins and outs of the matter in detail. Yes. Young master, it's like this. Wu Chong did not dare to hide anything. He told Ling Xiao everything that had happened in the spirit god realm these few days. I see. No wonder the spirit god realm is listed as the Azure Sky Forbidden Land. I didn't expect the 4 clans to shoulder such a heavy responsibility. Ling Xiao nodded. In the next moment, his eyes narrowed. Oh no. They used this method to plot against the Black Tortoise Emperor Palace and the Black Tortoise Emperor Palace. I'm afraid there's something fishy about the death of the Flame Dragon Crown Prince. The Flame Dragon Divine Dynasty is in danger. Chapter 1098. What? Young Lord is saying. Wu Chong's face tightened as panic flickered in his eyes. At this moment, he finally realized that from the beginning to the end, he had underestimated the 4 words heavenly demon vassal. That's right, since those fiends could deceive the Black Tortoise Divine Dynasty, Yin Luopa and the others must have fallen for the same trick. In that case, the Flame Dragon Emperor Palace. Quick, send people to the Flame Dragon Emperor City to investigate. It's too late. The most important thing now is to protect the 2 seals in the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty and Ancient Qilin Divine Dynasty. Since the evil treasure is divided into 4 parts, even if the Sky Demon obtains 2 of them, it won't be of much use. Ling Xiao sighed softly and turned to look at the void in the distance. There's no time to lose. Ancestor Wu Chong, you will lead the Black Tortoise Realm experts to guard the Golden Crow Imperial Palace. Ancestor Jin Yuyang and I will rush to the Ancient Qilin Divine Dynasty. Hopefully, we can stop this disaster. But Wu Chong wanted to say something but hesitated. The Black Tortoise Imperial City was in a terrible situation. For this expedition, he had brought almost all the Black Tortoise Realm experts with him. In other words, any true Saint Realm expert was an invincible existence in the Black Tortoise Imperial City. The seal is a serious matter. I hope everyone in the Black Tortoise Divine Dynasty can put aside their personal feelings and prioritize the world. Ling Xiao's tone was indifferent, but there was an inexplicable sense of righteousness in it. Young Lord, don't worry. We know what's important and what's not. The Black Tortoise Realm experts nodded in agreement. Ling Xiao turned to the messenger and asked, "What's the cultivation of those fiends? True Saint Realm, 2nd or 3rd grade True Saint Realm. In that case, Black Tortoise Emperor can return to the Black Tortoise Imperial City to investigate. If you find anything, report immediately. There's no time to lose, Ancestor Yuyang. Young Lord, don't worry. I will definitely assist Young Lord in stopping the Sky Demon's plan." Jin Yuyang took a step forward, and a pair of flaming wings appeared behind her. Ling Xiao no longer hesitated. He kept Wu Kuei into his realm and stood on the profound heavenly ancient ship. Beside him, both Xinyuan Weiyang and Yao Wang wore serious expressions. The Sky Demon's sinister nature was evident today. Fortunately, Qing Song had young Master Ling Xiao, who was not afraid of the demonic forces and cared about the common people. Let's go. Ancient Qilin Divine Dynasty. Following Ling Xiao's shout, countless ripples appeared in the void within a radius of 10,000 miles. The black battle intent tore through the sky and destroyed the blue dome of heaven. The heavenly profound ancient ship turned into a stream of light and shot into the distance. In front of the Golden Crow Imperial Palace, Jean Hainer frowned slightly, especially when she saw Yao Wang and Xinyuan Weiyang standing beside Ling Xiao. Her eyes darkened. "Young master, I heard that the devil had appeared in the void domain and fought with you. With your strength." Xinyuan Weiyang looked at Ling Xiao curiously, only to see him shake his head slightly with a serious expression. "This demon has an armor on his body, which can be called evil. With my current strength, I might not be his opponent, but with the help of the Arhut, I might be able to put up a fight. After all, the Buddha's path has a suppressive effect on the demonic nature." Amitabha. If the sky demon appears, I will do my best to help young master kill him. Yawan's expression didn't change as he chanted Buddha's name. Xinyuan Weiyang nodded seriously. Young master, don't worry. Weiyang will also do my best to help young master. Haha, if that's the case, the sky demon should be killed. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. His eyes were deep, and there was a hint of purple in them. Just now, he had received the message from overlapping shadows that he had obtained the Black Tortoise Divine Dynasty's Netherworld Plate Fragment and Divine Blood. Ling Xiao's main body was already outside the Fire Dragon Emperor Palace. He could meet up with Chun Shan at any time and put the blame of this shocking conspiracy on the gone Heavenly Divine Sect. Now, it seemed like this game of chess was coming to an end. Next, he should prepare to harvest the holy infant of the gone Heavenly Divine Sect. There must be a shocking secret hidden in the extreme Netherworld plate. It seemed like this secret was related to the holy infant. At the same time, in the realm, Ling Xiao's main body descended from the sky. Beside him, the chaotic divine body presented the reincarnation devil blade with both hands and disappeared. Young master, where did you get this idiot? Phoenix Rouge stepped out from the sky hall and looked at Wu Kuei, who was slowly crawling on the ground. Find a few disciples of the herb hall and feed him some spiritual pills every day to forcibly raise his cultivation to the supreme being level. Ling Xiao said indifferently. This Wu Kuei's talent was extraordinary, and his body was filled with luck. Once he stepped into the supreme being level, his physical defense would be extremely terrifying. At that time, he would be refined into a spiritual treasure, which would be of a high grade. All right, Rouge, how is the armor that I asked you to refine? Young master, look. Feng Rouge smiled slyly. She waved her hand and took out a strange armor from her universe ring. It was 90% similar to the one on Qin Shen's body. Furthermore, in the center of the armor, there was a blood-red pearl inlaid. It looked exactly like an eye. Young master, this pearl is a blood spiritual pearl. You only need to use your spiritual energy to light it up. Not bad. Ling Xiao reached out to take the armor and sized it up. The corners of his mouth immediately curled up into a smile. When Qin Shen appeared in the ancient city of Rocky Cliffs, he used this armor to kill countless disciples of the clan and severely injure Ling Xiao. It could be said that this demonic armor was the symbol of the Sky Demon. It had been more than a month since the end of the Supreme Secret Realm, but there were different opinions about the whereabouts of the Sky Demon, Qin Shen. But, since he was the scapegoat, Ling Xiao would not let Qin Shen disappear completely. He would appear from time to time to provoke more justice and destiny to appear and kill the demon. After all, the four dynasties were hell on earth, especially the ancient Qilin dynasty. Whether it was the ordinary people or the ancient Qilin clan, they were now at the end of the road. Yes, this chaotic world was led by the Sky Demon, but it was the Sky Demon who killed people. What did it have to do with Ling Xiao? Of course, we have to appear at the most critical time to kill the demon and protect the justice of the world. As a transmigrator, Phoenix Rouge's thoughts and methods were incomparable to those of this world. From the first time he saw her, Ling Xiao knew that this girl was clever and skillful. She would be a great help to him on his path to immortality. At the very least, this Fusang battlesuit looked like it was made. Young master, when will you take me out for a walk? I'm about to die of boredom. Phoenix Rouge pouted her red lips and looked resentful. In a few days, I'll take you to see the demons of the Azure world. Ling Xiao smiled gently and reached out to pinch Phoenix Rouge's pretty face. Then he disappeared. With Phoenix Rouge's scheming mind, Ling Xiao had already thought of a place for her to go. Calculating the time, Jade Han Yin and the others had been gone for several months. They might have found many people who had ascended from the lower world. When they returned, Ling Xiao would start to create a force that truly belonged to him. Buzz, ancient Qilin Imperial City, 100 miles away from auspicious Light City. Chun Shan and a group of sky-gone disciples stood in the mountains and looked at the spiritual power fluctuations above the Imperial City from afar. Their eyes were filled with fear. When heavenly sovereigns fought, even a wisp of power could destroy the world. Moreover, the powerhouses of the Flame Dragon Dynasty and Ancient Chilean Dynasty were fighting with their lives. Chapter 1099. Auspicious Light City was in shambles. The ancient Chilean imperial city was no longer as prosperous as it used to be. The divine palace had collapsed, and corpses were everywhere. Even the ancient Chilean clan had suffered heavy casualties. Their blood dyed the mountains and rivers red. Commander Chun, there are supreme beings fighting here. With our strength, I'm afraid. Some of the heavenly gone disciples raised their heads to look at the shattered space and swallowed hard. The strongest person in the Gone Sky Divine sect was only the sect master, who was a third-grade sage. The remaining commanders were mostly first-grade or second-grade sage. Only this Commander Chun was exceptionally talented and was appreciated by the sect master. At such a young age, he had become a commander with his cultivation base in the Exalted Realm. Even so, they were still ants in front of supreme beings. If they were not careful, they could be crushed to ashes by the residual power. What are you panicking for? Chen Qingshan frowned and shouted coldly. Just as he finished speaking, a ripple suddenly appeared in the void above his head. Then, a figure wrapped in demonic chi descended from the sky and stood in front of everyone. This demonic chi. Everyone was stunned. Chen Qingshan's eyes flashed with respect as he bowed to the demonic figure. Master, Master, the Gone Sky disciples were even more shocked when they heard that. The sect master of Gone Sky Divine Sect was using his identity as the Sky Demon's follower to fool the demons in the Azure world into working for him. Only Chen Qingshan knew that they were not worthy. However, to the ordinary disciples, the Gone Sky Divine Sect was a vassal of the Sky Demon. They could even feel that the sect master was just a servant of the Sky Demon. Master? Could it be? Hiss. Greetings, Master. Some of the sharper disciples had already knelt on the ground and bowed sincerely. Is everyone here? Ling Xiao turned his head and glanced at Chen Qingshan. At this moment, his appearance had already been concealed by demonic chi, leaving only a pair of deep, black eyes looking down at everyone. My lord, apart from the few disciples who are in charge of collecting the blood spirits, everyone else is here. Chen Qingshan bowed and said humbly. He was now a first-grade supreme being, which was slightly higher than Yi Qingshan. Even his providence had reached 15,000. It seemed that this son of destiny had encountered another opportunity in just a few days. Good. Come with me. Ling Xiao nodded. The Pure Dao body was less than 300 miles away from Auspicious Light City. Once he, the young master of the Ling clan, showed up, this dispute would come to an end. Yes, the fear on the faces of the Gantian disciples had long since dissipated. To them, the word heavenly demon was a symbol of faith. Although Ling Xiao did not reveal his identity, Commander Chen's attitude had already told them a lot. What kind of luck? Never in their wildest dreams would they have imagined that they would one day be able to fight alongside Lord Heavenly Demon. His death was worth it. Boom, boom, 10,000 miles of space. A flaming divine dragon tore through the sky and crashed into the ancient Chilean ancestor's chest. In an instant, the second-grade heavenly sovereign was sent flying. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and the aura on his body had already withered to the extreme. This battle had already lasted for 3 whole days. In those 3 days, the divine Imperial Court's grand formation had been completely destroyed. Even the ancient Scale clan's earthly sovereign and 4 saints had been killed in the battle. Their bodies and Dao had disappeared. It seemed that the ancient Chilean divine dynasty was at the end of the road. Yin Loapa, you really don't care about the agreement between the ancestors and betray them. The ancient Chilean ancestor fell to the ground. His eyes were full of anger. Yin Loapa could not stop him if he wanted to escape. However, he still had faith and people behind him. So, he could not escape. The ancient Chilean divine dynasty protected the Sky Demon. You deserve it. The Yin Dragon Divine Dynasty is just enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens. Even if I don't kill you, I'm afraid it won't be long before the Realm Lord Palace sends people over and slaughters your entire dynasty. Yin Luapa's voice was calm. Although the spiritual power in his body fluctuated, it did not hurt his foundation. A third-grade heavenly sovereign was one of the most powerful people in the Azure world. Moreover, the flame dragon bloodline was good at conquering. It was difficult for the ancient Chilean ancestor to fight against them. Yin Luapa, you are slandering me. The Realm Lord Palace will definitely uphold justice for me. The ancient Chilean ancestor looked up to the sky and shouted sorrowfully. However, the moment his voice fell, an ancient golden seal suddenly appeared in front of Yin Luopa. The ancient seal was surrounded by 9 flame dragons. As Yin Luopa clenched his hand, the 9 flame dragons opened their eyes and let out deafening dragon roars. This is the Flame Dragon clan's inherited sacred artifact, the 9 Dragons Flame Emperor Seal. At that moment, all the ancient Chilean experts' faces changed. Finally, there was despair in their eyes. This precious treasure had always been where the flame dragon Fate Chi resided. It had the power to suppress the dragon vein, and it would not be taken out of the Flame Dragon Emperor Palace easily. They did not expect Yin Luapa to bring this treasure out in order to destroy the ancient Chilean Emperor Palace. Guduan, the ancient Chilean Emperor Palace's Fate Chi has run out. Accept your fate. Yin Luapa's expression was calm. Divine flames swirled around him and enveloped the dragon seal. Boom! Boom! In an instant, the 9 flame dragon divine shadows broke through the sky and shrouded the entire ancient Chilean imperial city with their sacred aura. Could it be that the heavens really want to destroy the ancient Chilean divine dynasty? The ancient Chilean ancestor sighed softly with sorrow in his eyes. He was already at the end of his rope, and Yin Luapa had yet to show his true trump card. Once the seal fell, the 9 dragons would gather, and the ancient Chilean divine dynasty would cease to exist. How ridiculous! A woman and a bet battle had turned into the cause of today's destruction. Inexplicably, the ancient Chilean ancestor was confused. He had a vague feeling that there was an invisible hand behind all this, silently manipulating everything. Even the Flame Dragon Divine Dynasty was just a pawn in the hands of that person. However, who was so scheming and bold to be able to toy with the 2 divine dynasties in their hands? 9 dragons, World Annihilation Royal Seal. Just as the ancient Chilean emperor was muttering to himself, an angry roar came from the void above him. Immediately after, a sea of fire fell from the sky like an ancient calamity fire. Wherever it passed, the heavenly way was obliterated. Ancient Chilean clan, follow me. The ancient Chilean ancestor cried out sadly. No matter how doubtful he was, he had no way to verify it. This seal was the beginning of the destruction of the ancient Chilean divine dynasty. Young Emperor, are we really going to watch the ancient Chilean divine dynasty be destroyed? Thousands of miles away, 2 figures were hiding in the clouds. They concealed their auras and looked coldly at the dispute below. With the immortal demon Ancient Bell, even a Grade 9 heavenly sovereign would find it difficult to detect the aura of the snow tidal rock, let alone 2 Grade 2 and Grade 2 heavenly sovereigns. Young Emperor, do you really think that the ancient Chilean divine dynasty is colluding with the sky demon? Lu Xinghe frowned slightly. He and the young emperor had been waiting here for 2 days, but they had not seen any trace of the sky demon. Could it be that the flame dragon ancestor wanted to use this as an excuse to destroy the 3 dynasties and unify the spirit god realm? Chapter 1100. Old Xing. Do you think that if the ancient Chilean divine dynasty really colluded with the sky demon would show himself? Xue Xian's eyes were deep, and his skin was as white as snow. At this moment, there was not the slightest ripple on his face. It was as if the ancient Chilean divine dynasty's destruction had nothing to do with him. The sky demon is sinister and cunning. He probably won't care about their lives. Lu Xinghe pondered for a moment and shook his head. That's right. I think so too. Then, why are you here, young lord? Regardless of whether the ancient Chilean divine dynasty colluded with the sky demon, since there are traces of demons here, I'm afraid they're here for the evil treasure sealed by the four dynasties. Shuexian turned his head, and a bright smile bloomed on his face. His teeth were white and his eyes were bright. If it weren't for his flat chest, no one would have doubted that he was a girl just by looking at his face. In fact, compared to the number one beauty in the Azure world, Gu Chao Ci, Shuexian's face was even more handsome. He had a domineering aura that looked down on the world and controlled everything. Young lord, you mean this battle has come to an end? Usually, there will be changes at this time. Shuexian smiled faintly. However, his eyes suddenly turned cold, and he turned his head to look into the distance. At this moment, he could sense that there seemed to be a strand of vast battle intent pressing down on the heavens and the earth from 100 kilometers away. Buzz! A sea of fire surged in the ancient Chilean imperial palace. 9 dragons fell together, covering the sky and the sun. Their power was truly terrifying. The ancient Chilean ancestor's eyes trembled, and the spiritual light around him fluctuated. However, under the sovereign seal, he seemed a little weak. But, just as he was about to fight with his life on the line, a strange buzzing sound came from the void above his head. Immediately after, a pair of flaming wings that stretched for hundreds of meters spread out horizontally and blocked the 9 dragons. However, both attacks were condensed from flames, so there was no difference between them from afar. At this time, everyone could only see that the entire imperial palace had turned into a divine sun, comparable to hell on earth. Now is the time. In the depths of the imperial palace, Ling Xiao calmly glanced at the distant sky, then turned to look at the towering ancient hall before him. Ancient runes intertwined and formed a seal, containing a strand of divine intent. This was the place where the ancient Chilean holy dynasty had sealed the netherworld plate. If it was in the past, such a forbidden area would definitely be guarded by experts. However, it just so happened that the ancient Chilean divine dynasty was about to be destroyed, so all the experts with some strength had already fallen into a chaotic battle. Moreover, the ancient palace's seal could only be broken by the ancient Chilean emperor bloodline. In the eyes of Gu Duan and the others, there was no need to worry. I can sense that the treasure is in this palace. Ling Zhao's indifferent words caused the sky-gone disciples' expressions to brighten. Although they didn't know what kind of secret technique their master had used to bring them here, they still didn't know. However, the chaotic battle between the 2 dynasties was a great opportunity for them to seize the treasures. Heavenly good fortune. This was a heaven-defying fortune. I wonder if His Majesty will honor his promise to let us leave our names in the underworld. My lord, this seal. Qin Qingshan frowned slightly, and his eyes were slightly solemn. Even he didn't know that Ling Xiao wasn't here for the evil treasure in the palace. Instead, he was here to draw the world's attention to the sky demon, Qin Shun, and the sky-gone divine sect. Fortunately, Prince Guyu is a righteous man and has submitted to me. This seal can be broken with a wave of his hand. Ling Xiao said indifferently. With a thought, Guyu's figure suddenly appeared in front of him. His eyes were filled with confusion. Then, before the second prince of Gulin could react, he felt his neck tighten and his entire body was thrown out by a terrifying force. He slammed hard on the totem in the middle of the ancient palace. Pucci, as expected, with the strength of Guyu's body, it was impossible for him to be compared to Ling Xiao. Therefore, the moment his body collided with the stone door of the ancient palace, it instantly shattered and the blood energy in his body was devoured by the seal. Gulp! The scene of the apprenticeship caused a stunned expression to appear on the faces of all the heavenly gone disciples. This is the so-called can be broken with a wave of his hand. Oh, it seems like it can be broken with a wave of his hand. With a wave of His Majesty's hand, Guyu broke. Boom! A dazzling golden light quietly bloomed. However, under the cover of the waves of fire, no one noticed the commotion, except for Shuexian. Young lord, look! Lu Xinghe's eyes trembled. especially when he saw the demonic figure in the depths of the palace. A look of reverence appeared on his face. This was the reason why he took the initiative to submit to Xue Shiyan. No matter when, this young lord always seemed to be able to see further. Even compared to the many Supreme Being experts in the Realm Lord Palace, Xue Shiyan's temperament was monstrous. But just as Xue Shiyan nodded indifferently and was about to take a step forward, he saw a peerless black-clothed figure quietly appear above the ancient palace. Immediately, a cold shout resounded through the entire world. The sky demon is indeed here. Buzz! At the same time, above the void, Yin Luopa looked at the graceful figure that gradually revealed her figure with a shocked expression. His eyes were filled with disbelief. At this moment, he seemed to have seen a golden flaming bird soar into the sky and block the 9 dragons, turning them into nothingness together. Yin Luopa, stop! You have all been used by someone. Jin Yuyang stood in the void, her feather robe blooming with divine light. Even her face seemed to have become a lot younger. She had quite a bit of charm. Jin Yuyang? You, Sky Demon, where do you think you're going? Before everyone could react from their shock, a fierce shout suddenly came from the depths of the palace. A loud and clear sword hum suddenly resounded, and an extremely piercingly cold aura spread out in all directions for thousands of miles in the world. Amipa. Then, another Buddhist hymn was heard, and layers of Buddha shadows appeared in the world. Amidst the divine light, a white-haired female monk stepped through the air. Behind her, tens of thousands of Buddhas followed, golden light like lightning. Boundless Dharma. In another place, an endless sea of blood surged with saintly might. Among them, a young girl with black hair like a waterfall and a peerless beauty had a serious look in her eyes, faintly tinged with nervousness. She stretched out her hand, and a boundless sea of blood fell from the sky, sealing the world and suppressing the world. Let's go. Ling Zhao's eyes were cold, and demonic will surge around him. Immediately, a blood-red eye appeared on the Fu-Sang divine armor, blooming with scarlet light. Clang, clang, clang. 9 bell chimes reverberated in the void for thousands of miles. Xue Xian frowned slightly as he looked down at the 3 figures that had surrounded the heavenly demon. There was an extremely complicated look in his eyes. Ling Xiao, the Bodhisattva, and Xianyuan Princess. All 3 of them, no matter which one it was, were the true righteous in the eyes of the human race. However, the timing of their appearance, wasn't it too much of a coincidence? Or rather, every time the sky demon appeared, why would the successor of the Ling people appear on time? Chapter 1101. Let's go. Demonic will gushed out of Ling Zhao's body, forming a 100-foot-tall demonic shadow that blocked the attacks of Yao Guang, Xianyuan Weiyang, and the pure Dao body. However, even with his strength, he still trembled in the face of the 3 top geniuses of the human race. He spat out blood and retreated. Then, before anyone could react, he had already grabbed Chun Qingshan's shoulder and was about to flee into the distance. Clang! At that moment, the sound of a bell suddenly rang in the sky above. Tens of thousands of meters of golden radiance rained down, transforming into countless phenomena that attempted to seal the heavens and earth. At the critical moment, a ray of light lit up in Ling Zhao's hand, and he threw a divine talisman across the sky. Boom! The talisman shattered, erupting with a terrifying might. It directly tore open a crack in space. With a thought, Ling Xiao hid with Chun Qingshan in his realm. Oh no! Master has run away. Run! Seeing this scene, the Gone Sky disciples immediately cried out in grief and scattered like birds and beasts. Damn it! He got away again. Wei Yong, Arhut, capture him! The pure Dao body shouted angrily and took the lead, rushing toward one of the exalted realm disciples. Boom, boom! Mighty spiritual might once again filled the air. However, with the strength of these sky-gone disciples, how could they possibly be a match for the Nirmala body in Yaoguang? Therefore, in just 10 breaths, more than half of the disciples who came with Chun Qingshan were dead or injured. The remaining few were all captured by Yao Guang and Xinyuan Weiyang. Since young Master Shui is here, why don't you show yourself? Ling Zhao's Dao body looked up at the sky with a serious expression. Even his body seemed to be surrounded by a wisp of dense purple qi. He was otherworldly and indifferent. He had expected that the turmoil in the four dynasties would attract some azure righteous path cultivators. So he put in a lot of effort to set up today's chess game. Who would have thought that it would be the snow-tide crag this time? Moreover, judging from his actions earlier, it seemed like he already knew that the fight between the Flame Dragon and Gu Lin was merely a game of chess. That talisman was a 7th-grade talisman that Ling Xiao had spent 70,000 villain points to exchange from the system. It was a treasure. If it weren't for the terrifying power of the immortal devil Ancient Bell, Ling Xiao wouldn't have used it so easily. Young Master Ling, suddenly, a cold shout came from above the clouds. Strands of golden light bloomed and sprinkled down. It was gorgeous and mystical. Shui Xian stood proudly at the peak of the sky. Xinyuan Weiyang stared blankly at that indifferent and cold face. He turned to look at Ling Xiao with some confusion. Young Master, this young Master Shui is so beautiful. How have you been, young Emperor? Ling Zhao's tone was indifferent. Shui Xian's figure descended from the sky and stood in front of Ling Xiao. However, the divine light in his eyes made people feel inexplicably uneasy. Master Ling Xiao, what a coincidence! Shui Xian's words clearly had a deeper meaning. This was the 3rd time. Whenever the Sky Demon appeared, this young master of the Ling people would definitely be present. In the eyes of the world, Ling Xiao, the young master of the Ling people, was righteous and had spared no effort to kill the Sky Demon. Moreover, he had indeed done so. However, Shui Xian just felt that something was wrong. Young Master Shui, you're wrong. It should be said that fate brought us together. Ling Zhao's face suddenly bloomed with a smile. It was obviously gentle, but chilling. Jin Yuyang, if you don't give me an explanation today, I'll destroy the Golden Crow dynasty. A fierce shout suddenly came from the palace in the distance. At that moment, Yin Luopa's face was dark, and there seemed to be flames in his eyes. The attack just now was enough to suppress all the elites of the ancient Qilin lineage. The Yin Dragon Divine Dynasty was only one step away from dominating the Spirit God realm. However, this Jin Yuyang didn't know what was good for her and dared to stand in his way. Wait, her cultivation level. Yin Luopa narrowed his eyes and frowned. At that moment, he seemed to feel that Jin Yuyang's body was emitting a fluctuation that made his heart palpitate. How could it be? According to reliable sources, this Golden Crow patriarch did not have much time left and was at the end of his path. A breakthrough before death? That was ridiculous. The last person who said that is still kneeling in my Golden Crow, the Arch City. Jin Yuyang sneered as if she didn't care about Yin Luopa at all. If it had been a month ago, she wouldn't have dared to offend even the emperors of the 4 dynasties, let alone Yin Luopa. But now, with Lord Ling Zhao's support, what did she have to fear from a small Yin Dragon Divine Dynasty? Thank you, Taoist Yuyang. The ancient Qilin patriarch bowed slightly, a hint of surprise in his eyes. Although the ancient Qilin Divine Dynasty had always stood aloof from worldly affairs, they didn't have a deep relationship with the Golden Crows. Why would Jin Yuyang suddenly appear and stop the Yin Dragon Patriarch's strongest attack? If you want to thank someone, you have to thank my young master. Jin Yuyang shook her head and smiled, her bright golden eyes looking into the depths of the palace. There, 2 figures, one black and one white, walked over side by side. Behind them, Yao Guang and Xinyuan Weiyang each descended from the sky with a few gone sky disciples in their hands. This is young Master Shui? Yin Luopa and Gu Duan were stunned, and a hint of surprise flashed in their eyes. It could be said that no one in the entire Qingcong didn't know this young lord of the Realm Lord Palace. When the Realm Lord went missing, it was Shui Xian who used the immortal demon Ancient Bell to suppress the traitors and stabilize the situation in the Azure Continent. But who was that young man beside him? How many people in the Azure continent were qualified to stand side by side with Shuexian? Except his. His hair was tied up in black, and his immortal face was peerless. Young master of the Ling people? In an instant, Yin Luopa, Gu Lin, and the others turned pale, and inexplicable fear filled their hearts. Either one of them had the strength and background to crush Qin Song's generation. Now that they had appeared together in the spirit god realm, they didn't know if it was a blessing or a curse. Young Master Shui Young, young Master Ling, why have you come to the spirit god realm personally? Yin Luopa looked uneasy. Even though he was a heavenly supreme, he was still not worth mentioning in front of the Ling people and the Realm Lord Palace. The Sky Demon has appeared, and young Master Shui and I are here to slay it. Ling Zhao's expression was cold as he waved his hand and threw the few gone Sky Disciples in front of everyone. Young Master, the second prince of the Gu Lin divine dynasty colluded with the Sky Demon and killed our crown prince. You must seek justice for the Yin Dragon clan. Yin Luopa cried out in grief, looking very miserable. The Realm Lord had decreed that the four dynasties were not to conquer and to guard against evil beings. Now that the Yin Dragon Divine Dynasty had openly disobeyed the decree, if the Realm Lord Palace wanted to punish them, they would be wiped out overnight. Yin Dragon Ancestor, you sigh, have all been fooled by the Sky Demon. Ling Xiao sighed softly, as if it was a pity. Previously, the Black Tortoise Divine Dynasty was instigated by the Black Tortoise Divine Dynasty and the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty to conquer, and then seize the opportunity to seize the evil beings suppressed by the Black Tortoise Divine Dynasty. I think the Yin Dragon Imperial Palace is probably already What? Impossible. Our Imperial Palace has a great protective array. Yin Luopa was stunned. He suddenly raised his hand and took out a voice transmission talisman from his spatial ring. Huangguan, Huangguan. Old ancestor. A weak female voice suddenly came from the other end of the talisman, followed by heart-wrenching cries. Old ancestor. The Emperor Lord was killed, and all the experts of a Yin Dragon bloodline were slaughtered. Now, the Imperial Palace only has women and children left. Chapter 11:02. What? Yin Luopa's face turned pale, and his body trembled violently. How is this possible? My Imperial Palace is protected by the Imperial Guardian Array. Even a heavenly sovereign. Patriarch. Someone betrayed the Flame Dragon clan. Damn it. Yin Luopa roared at the sky, his eyes filled with killing intent. Never in his wildest dreams had he imagined that this grand plan to unify the four dynasties would actually end with his flame dragon bloodline being annihilated. With Shuexian and Ling Xiao here, it was impossible for him to control the ancient Qilin divine dynasty. So, in the end, his dynasty was destroyed, the seal was broken, and he didn't get any other benefits? I can't explain the details in a few words. You should see for yourselves. Ling Xiao sighed softly and raised his head to look at the sky. He seemed depressed and sorrowful, as if he had the will but was powerless to do so. Come here. Yin Luopa gritted his teeth and grabbed a gone Sky disciple who had wet his pants on the ground. His divine soul rippled and shrouded the disciple's soul sea. The ancient Qilin patriarch and Shuexian hesitated for a moment, but in the end, they didn't care about anything else and searched the divine soul of a gone Sky disciple. Although this method was extremely cruel, ordinary people from the righteous Tao rarely search people's soul sea openly. However, these people in blood-red robes all had a trace of nefarious aura on them. Evil Tao people didn't care about morality and fairness. Buzz, along with a buzzing sound, Yin Luopa, Shuexian, and the others were shocked, especially Yin Luopa, who stood in place with a blank face. His originally old face had a hint of lethargy. How is this possible? Sky Demon, what a vicious scheme. Guyu, he really colluded with the Sky Demon. Gu Duan's face was pale, and he looked at Shuexian and Ling Xiao in fear. Young Lord, please understand. Guyu colluding with the Sky Demon has nothing to do with the ancient Qilin Divine Dynasty. Nothing to do with it? Didn't you see that it was Guyu who led the Gon Sky Divine sect into my Flame Dragon Emperor Palace? Guduin, today I will annihilate your Gulin lineage and avenge my people. The Flame Luo Po's eyes were bloodshot as spirit light surged around him, wanting to lunge towards Guduin. Stop! Ling Xiao frowned slightly and glanced coldly at Yanluo. Now that Guyu is dead, the four dynasties are in a precarious situation. If we continue to fight amongst ourselves, we will only be digging our own graves. Young lord, what do you mean? Could it be that you want me, Flame Dragon, to let go of this grudge? Guyu was killed by the Sky Demon. Everyone saw it with their own eyes. Perhaps he was used by someone, but this was indeed the negligence of the ancient Qilin clan. Therefore, young Lord Shui should decide how to deal with it. Before Ling Xiao could finish his words, Yin Luopa's eyes widened. He shook his head and sighed. Of course, since the Sky Demon wants the evil treasures sealed by the four dynasties, and he has already obtained 2, I think he will not let go of the remaining 2. The Black Tortoise clan has listened to my suggestion and submitted to the Golden Crow clan to guard the Golden Crow seal together. Now that the Flame Dragon and ancient Qilin dynasties have suffered heavy losses, I am afraid that if the Sky Demon comes again, your 2 clans will be completely annihilated. The ancient Qilin ancestor's eyes trembled slightly. He saw Jin Yuyang standing quietly behind Ling Xiao, looking extremely respectful. He immediately had a guess in his heart. With the ancient Qilin Divine Dynasty's current foundation, not to mention the Sky Demon, even a heavenly sovereign would be able to slaughter them all. The seal was no longer something that they could protect. Moreover, although Master Ling Xiao trusted him, Guyu was the prince of the ancient Qilin Dynasty, and he was related to the Sky Demon. If he sees the seal now, it would inevitably arouse suspicion and jealousy. If so, why not throw this hot potato out? Young lord. Suddenly, the ancient Qilin ancestor took a step forward and bowed respectfully to Ling Xiao. Ancestor, what are you doing? You are a senior in the path of immortality. How is Ling Xiao worthy of you bowing down? You are flattering me. Ling Xiao hurriedly took 2 steps forward and helped the ancient Qilin ancestor up. It was obvious that this ancestor was sensible and was prepared to take the initiative to hand over the seal. In front of the threat of annihilation, the creation's spiritual treasure and the promise of faith were not worth mentioning. This evil treasure fragment was useless to the 4 dynasties. If it attracted the attention of the Sky Demon, it would be a great disaster. Young lord, I heard that the young lord is righteous. Now that the ancient Qilin dynasty is unable to protect the seal, I hope that the young lord can be magnanimous and help us seal this treasure. The ancient Qilin ancestor's expression was respectful, especially when he saw how humble Ling Xiao was. It made him sigh inexplicably. Compared to Shui Xian, who was the young lord of the Realm Lord Palace, Ling Xiao was undoubtedly gentler and more approachable. This is not appropriate, right? Ling Xiao frowned and seemed to hesitate. Young lord, this is a great plan for the common people. If the Sky Demon obtains this item, I'm afraid the entire Azure continent will fall into eternal damnation. Only with the Ling clan's protection will it be absolutely safe. The ancient Qilin ancestor's meaning was clear. The Realm Lord was missing, and the Realm Lord Palace was no longer a threat. The Taigu Ling people had a deep foundation and were feared by the entire Azure continent. Moreover, the 2 fragments of the evil treasure had been taken away by the Sky Demon. Even if Ling Xiao was greedy, he would not be able to complete this treasure, unless this Tao heart that was recognized by the Azure continent as the light of righteousness had fallen and colluded with the Sky Demon. Even so, the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty was still suppressing an evil treasure. With the protection of the 4 dynasties, there should not be any more changes. This Ling Xiao sighed softly. Since this item is so important, I have a suggestion. Young Lord Shui, the Ling people have been living in seclusion and do not send out experts. However, The Realm Lord Palace is in charge of the Azure continent and has the responsibility to protect the common people. I hope that young Lord Shui can send some experts to Golden Crow City to guard the other evil treasure. Then I will bring the ancient Qilin dynasty back to seal the Ling people. Hearing this, everyone was stunned and looked at Shui Xian. Master Ling Xiao, you are indeed the great light of Azure Continent. With such a magnanimous heart, the human race will prosper. Everyone knew that the Realm Lord Palace and the Taigu Ling people had always been at odds. However, in the face of such a major issue, Master Ling Xiao could actually put down the prejudice in his heart and guard the evil treasure together with the Realm Lord Palace to fight against the Sky Demon. This was a righteous action. All right, Shui Xian frowned slightly. Although he had seen the cause of this disaster in the spirit sea of the Gone Sky disciple just now. However, for some reason, he vaguely felt that there was something suspicious behind all this. Flame Dragon Patriarch, now that the world is in chaos, young Lord Shui, and I still hope that you can put down the grudge in your heart and contribute to the Sky Demon slaying plan. Ling Xiao said indifferently, not hiding the deep meaning in his words. Yes, in the end, in front of the two immortal forces, the Taigu Ling people and the Realm Lord Palace, Yin Luopa chose to endure and submit. The Flame Dragon lineage's foundation was completely destroyed. However, as long as he was still alive, the Flame Dragon race still had hope. Back then, the reason why Ling Xiao did not exterminate the Flame Dragon race was to leave a trace of hope for this heavenly sovereign. Otherwise, when the bloodline was destroyed, he would truly have no scruples. At the very least, the current Yin Luopa still had the desire to revive the Flame Dragon race. Now, it seems that the Gone Sky Divine sect is most likely a force secretly created by the Sky Demon. Young Lord Shui, there is no time to lose. I will personally lead the Ling people's guards to the Gone Sky Divine sect and see if we can eradicate this sect. I will leave the spirit god territory to you, young lord. Ling Xiao looked into the distance with a worried expression. Even his eyes were filled with a touch of vicissitudes of life that moved people. Chapter 1103. Shui Xian nodded with a cold expression. Among the four dynasties, only the Black Tortoise ancestor, Jin Yuyang, and Jin Yin had been implanted by Ling Xiao. Given their identities, the snow-tide rock wouldn't easily probe their seas of soul. Even if he stayed here and secretly investigated the demon's whereabouts, he would not be able to find any loopholes. With this young master's shrewdness, she would not believe what she saw. Only by asking her to stay and verify it herself could she understand the true meaning of young master's righteousness. Young master, please come with me. The ancient Qilin ancestor bowed slightly and led Ling Xiao into the depths of the palace. Ancestor, young master, farewell. Ling Xiao nodded and did not hesitate any longer. He grabbed the remaining Gone Sky disciple and strode toward the sealed area. At this time, the seal outside the ancient palace had been broken. The ancient Qilin ancestor lifted the divine platform that contained the divine blood and handed it to Ling Xiao. Young master, this drop of divine blood can suppress evil. The mission of the ancient Qilin dynasty is in your hands. Ancestor, don't worry. I swear on my Dao heart that as long as I, Ling Xiao, am alive, I will not let this evil item fall into the hands of others. Ling Xiao's tone was serious, but the ancient Qilin ancestor was stunned. At this moment, he seemed to understand why the young master of the Ling clan had a holy name that was not inferior to the sages of the human clan after only being born for a few months. Protecting the evil treasure was the mission of the ancient Qilin race. Now, they had no choice but to entrust it to Ling Xiao. To put it bluntly, even if the young master of the Ling people rejected it, the ancient Qilin ancestor would not be surprised. After all, the Sky Demon was feared by the nine heavens. Even though it was still young, no one in the entire Azure continent dared to stand up for it and openly oppose it. The people of the world were cowardly and greedy. However, If one had to pay the price of one's life and the legacy of one's clan throughout history, only one human emperor, Xin Yuan, had the guts to do so. Yet now, Ling Xiao was actually willing to gamble with his Dao heart to protect this item. This clearly showed his benevolence and righteousness. It was no wonder that this young man, who was only in his early 20s, was already an opportunity for the revival of the human race. Fearless, righteous, the backbone of the human race. It's a great fortune to have a young master in these troubled times. If the heavens didn't give birth to young master, the human race would be like a long night. The ancient scale ancestor took a deep breath and bowed deeply to Ling Xiao. This bow was not because of his background or talent, but because of the righteousness in his heart. Ancestor, you flatter me. There's no time to lose. I'll track down the demon first. The spirit god realm will be guarded by the few ancestors. Ling Xiao waved his hand and kept the immortal foundation netherworld disc into the glaze ancient pagoda. He then turned and left. Behind him, Yao Wang and Xinyuan Weiyang were deeply moved. Their bright eyes were trembling. Apparently, they were also in awe of Ling Xiao's actions, especially Yao Wang. The wariness in his eyes had unknowingly dissipated. Even if he was a demon, he should be a great demon like the ancient demon lord who protected the common people and fought for the heavens with his life. Buzz. In the void, an ancient battleship swept across. Ling Xiao's figure landed at the bow of the battleship. He stood with his hands behind his back. His black robe fluttered in the wind, and his aura was unique. Countless figures in the ancient Qilin imperial palace bowed to Huang Xiaolong and shouted, "Farewell, young lord." Only Xue Xian remained calm and seemed to be pondering. He didn't take the evil treasure, didn't take the credit, and didn't seize the opportunity to control the four dynasties. Could it be that I've been worrying too much? Boom! The wind and clouds surged, and spiritual light danced wildly. The 1,000-foot battleship eventually turned into a stream of light and flew towards the intersection of the Shenwu dynasty and the Dragon Abyss Sword Tomb. However, just as Ling Xiao and the others were about to leave the Spirit Divine region, a clear shout suddenly came from the distant sky. "Lord Ling Xiao!" Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly and turned his head. He saw a pair of golden flame wings coming from afar and instantly appearing above everyone's heads. Jin Han was dressed in a feathered robe that was overflowing with divine flames. Her jade-white face was filled with a touch of shyness and anticipation. Is young master leaving the Spirit Divine region? Just now, the forefather had sent her a voice transmission and asked her to come here. His purpose was naturally to catch up with Ling Xiao and to travel together with him. Although the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty had submitted to the young master, how could Jin Han be willing to be a servant? Only by standing beside the young master could she have the opportunity to take a step forward and even reach a negative distance. The demonic traces have appeared, and a new storm has appeared. How can we cultivators remain stagnant? Ling Xiao frowned slightly. At this time, he was not in a hurry to travel. He still had to wait for the other small team of the Gone Sky Divine sect to successfully send back the blood spirits collected in the Spirit Divine region. Only then could the blood infant activate the great array and become his true self. At that time, holy infant, you have worked hard. Holy infant, you are righteous. Holy infant, you will die. A set of 3, harvested and brought away, and obtained the fortune. As for whether this holy infant would conceal himself and escape from the nest, Ling Xiao guessed that there was an 80% chance that he would not, because he would not know what had happened in the Spirit Divine region. Young master is righteous. Han deeply admires you. I only hope that I can follow young master, bathe in the divine light, cleanse my Tao heart, and contribute to the rise of the human race. Jin Han had a respectful expression as she bowed to Ling Xiao. Since you have this intention, then follow me to search for the demonic traces. Ling Xiao nodded indifferently. Compared to Yi Qin Chan and the others, this Golden Crow princess was obviously stronger. Moreover, he needed someone to witness his righteous deeds. With these 3 women of destiny following him, he didn't have to do everything himself. Young master, thank you for giving me this opportunity. Honor will definitely not betray young master's trust. Jinhan's eyes lit up with joy. She descended from the sky and stood beside Ling Xiao. However, when she saw the coldness on Yao Wang's and Xinyuan Weiyang's faces, she immediately stepped back and stood behind the 2 women. Let's go, Ling Xiao said indifferently. He steered the ancient ship and traveled along the mountain. The location of the Gone Sky Divine sect was perfect. It was located at the border of the Shenwu dynasty and the Dragon Abyss Sword Tomb. No one had ever paid attention to it. Of course, an evil sect whose strongest was not at the Saint Realm could not cause too much trouble. At the same time, in the Dragon Abyss Sword Tomb, in front of the Sword Tomb, there was a sudden burst of divine light. An extremely cold aura gushed out and cut off the ancient forest in the mountain. Buzz, buzz. Subsequently, another sword howl resounded abruptly, and the 30,000-meter sword insight shattered the sky and shook the hearts of all. The sword master of the Dragon Abyss sword was shocked. He stretched out his hand and blocked the sword intent. Then he looked down at the 3 people who were still sitting cross-legged in front of the ancient tablet. Most of the disciples of the Sword Tomb had already awakened from their enlightenment. Only Ling Tian, Xiang Tian, and Jun Mo had not awakened. The sword intent around them intertwined, as if they had comprehended an extremely powerful sword force. Could it be that 3 sword immortals will appear in the Dragon Abyss Sword Tomb this time? The sword master of the Dragon Abyss sword was shocked. Among the 3 of them, Xiang Tian's sword force was the most majestic. However, he somehow felt that Ling Tian, who had not moved at all, was the one chosen by the ancient tablet this time, the heavenly mandate inheritance. Chapter 1104. Another day, when the Sword Chi River above the Dragon Abyss Sword Tomb gradually dissipated. In front of the ancient tablet, the 3 people opened their eyes at the same time. Boom! The ancient tablet that was originally standing in front of the Sword Tomb suddenly collapsed from the middle and scattered on the ground. The Sword Master's expression turned cold, and the premonition in his heart grew stronger. This time, the Sword Tomb successor's name would probably shake the 9 heavens. Master! Xiang Tian and the other 2 stood up and looked at each other with smiles on their faces. Unlike the scheming of ordinary sects, the disciples of the Sword Tomb had always been straightforward and regarded the sword as their life. Thus, no matter which senior brother or junior brother had a breakthrough on the path of the sword, they would be congratulated. This was also the reason why the Dragon Abyss Sword Tomb did not have many disciples and their inheritance was shallow, but many supreme forces feared them. Not bad. Looks like all of you have gained something. The Sword Master nodded slightly, but he still had doubts in his heart. He asked in a deep voice, Xiang Tian, what did you gain? Master, my sword Dao has reached perfection. Xiang Tian's expression was firm, and there seemed to be sword radiance blooming around him. He was like an unsheathed divine sword, causing people to shudder. Oh, Mo Wu, what about you? Master, I visualized the sword force in the stone tablet and tempered my sword heart. Jun and Mo Wu smiled sweetly. At this moment, her gaze landed on Xiang Tian, and she could actually see the changes in his sword intent and sword force. Once the 2 of them fought, Jun and Mo Wu could use this as a contract to counter each move. The flawless sword heart was originally an extremely rare talent in the path of the sword Dao. Who would have thought that she would use it to observe the divine tablet today? Not bad. What about you? In the end, the Dragon Abyss Sword Tomb turned to look at Ling Tian. Compared to Xiang Tian and Junimo Wu, he was more curious about what kind of fortune this cold-hearted disciple with a Dao heart between the righteous and the demonic had obtained. The ancient tablet collapsed. Could it be that the person in the Sword Tomb found a true successor? Replying to Master, disciple saw an inheritance. Just as Ling Tian finished speaking, the Sword Master's eyes narrowed. Inheritance? That's right. It's called the 3,000 Sword Bones. Boom! Dark clouds suddenly fell from the sky, and wind and thunder roared in the sky. Boundless Taoist rhymes surged forth and intertwined in the clouds. Above Ling Tian's head, a celestial figure could be faintly seen. He was dressed in white and had black hair. 3,000 Sword Bones. The sword master of the Dragon Abyss sword was shocked. Just a strand of aura was able to cause such a phenomenon. One could only imagine how unparalleled Ling Tian would be once he successfully cultivated this bone. Who would have thought that the Sword Immortal legacy would be obtained by a youth who had just entered the sect? Of course, even if the sword master of the Dragon Abyss sword was extremely curious about such an immortal art, he did not have a trace of greed at this moment. After all, he had already studied this ancient tablet for tens of thousands of years. Although he had occasionally obtained some good fortune from it and comprehended many sword techniques, he still hadn't obtained the recognition of the immortals to be bestowed with a supreme divine art. The immortal path was filled with endless changes. In the end, it was luck that determined the upper limit of this path. Some people were unable to reach this realm even after spending their entire lives. Some people only needed to comprehend it once, and they could ascend. Hard work will make you outstanding, but hard work won't bring you to the top. That's right. Since the three of you have obtained something, then focus on your cultivation and work hard to prove your Tao. The sword master of the Dragon Abyss sword sighed softly. There was a complicated look between his brows. Meanwhile, Ling Tian and the other two bowed and turned to walk down mountain. Although, at this moment, Ling Tian could feel that there seemed to be an aura calling out to him from the depths of the sword tomb. However, it was said that this sword tomb contained billions of sword intents, not to mention his current cultivation level. Even if a supreme powerhouse entered rashly, their body would be instantly pierced through and their soul would be destroyed. Ling Tian had a vague feeling that he could only open the sword tomb and obtain the final inheritance after he forged the sword bone. Boom! Divine Martial Imperial Realm, Sword Tomb Outskirts. At this moment, above the barren mountain, a bloody aura was surging. There was a faint, dark aura that enveloped the sky, concealing all the evil in this place. What? Ling People's young master and the Realm Lord's palace's young master both went to the Spirit God realm? The blood child, Holy Infant's face was gloomy, and there seemed to be a bloody glow in his eyes. Yes, that's what the disciples who returned said. In front of him, Sect Master Gon Tian looked terrified as he bowed and reported. What about the youth who found the underworld plate's whereabouts? Did he come back alive? Holy Infant, he's in the mountain now, and he's also suffered some serious injuries. Tell him to come in. Yes, Sect Master Gon Tian felt as if he had been pardoned, and he jogged out of the cave. Commander Chun, the Holy Infant wants to see you. At this moment, in the forest of the barren mountain, Chun Qingshan and another saint stood quietly, their faces pale. Especially Chun Qingshan, his aura was weak, and there were still traces of blood at the corner of his mouth. Yes, hearing this, Chun Qingshan's eyes narrowed, but he did not hesitate and walked toward the cave at the top of the mountain. Although he had already sensed the Holy Infant's aura, he had never seen his face. Now that his master was on his way, it was obvious that he wanted to destroy this evil sect. As such, he only needed to calm the Holy Infant down, and his master would take care of everything. When Qin Qingshan walked into the cave, he saw the Holy Infant in blood-red clothes sitting on a stone chair in the cave, a pair of bloody eyes staring coldly at him. Greetings, Holy Infant. You're Qin Qingshan? Not bad. You've done a great service by collecting the blood spirits. I'll reward you. The blood child, Holy Infant, smiled evilly and sized Qin Qingshan up. However, he frowned when he saw that the young man's nether chi was even denser than his. I heard that the young master of the Ling people and the young master of the Realm Lord's palace went to the Spirit God realm. Did any of my disciples fall into their hands? Don't worry, Holy Infant. Before I left, the sect master gave me the nether seal. I've already killed those who fell into the hands of others. Chen Qingshan's expression did not change as he replied in a deep voice. That's right. Sect Master Tian had given him the nether seal to control the lives of his disciples. However, his master wanted them alive, so he had already thrown the nether seal away. Very good. This is the courage that the nether clan should have. I heard from Gan that you're good friends with the second prince of the ancient Qilin divine dynasty. Was he the one who told you about the nether plate? The blood-child holy infant smiled in satisfaction, but a cold glint flashed across his eyes. That's right. Since you're so good friends with him, why didn't he steal the nether plate and offer it to me? An evil light suddenly shot out from between the blood-child holy infant's eyebrows. An invisible force suddenly descended and enveloped Chen Qingshan. Even though both of them were in the venerable realm, Chen Qingshan still felt a chill in his heart. He almost lost his mind in the nether chi. Holy infant, the second prince of Guyu doesn't know that I've joined the demon sect. This time, I found out about the whereabouts of the nether plate by chance. I hope you can investigate. Chen Qingshan gritted his teeth, but a smile appeared on the blood-child holy infant's face. The majestic nether chi instantly dissipated, and his figure was already about 10 feet in front of Chen Qingshan. Chapter 1105. I'm joking. You don't have to be so nervous. The blood-child holy nascent soul sized Chen Qingshan up. That nether plate is indeed the most precious treasure of the nether tribe, but it's not an offensive treasure. It's a formation that connects the nether land and the azure world. A formation? Chen Qingshan frowned. He was surprised. He didn't expect the 4 divine dynasties to seal such an evil thing that connected the human world and the netherland. Chen Qingshan didn't know what kind of tribe the nether tribe was. However, since they were sealed by the immortal tribe, they must have a terrifying background and means. Otherwise, with the tyrannical power of the immortal clan, it would not be as simple as sealing him. That's right. However, this nether plate isn't the opportunity for the nether tribe to be reborn. This plate can only enter the netherland from the azure world. It can't return from the netherland. The blood-child holy nascent soul smiled. The blood spirit formation is complete now. As long as I use it as a contract and completely merge with the mark of the nether god, I'll be able to find the entrance to the nether tribe's seal. Then, I'll just break the seal and our tribe will return to the world. The immortal tribe and the demon tribe will just be stepping stones for us. The mark of the nether god. Chen Qingshan frowned. At this moment, he felt uneasy. Why would the blood-child holy nascent soul suddenly tell him such a secret? After all, Chen Qingshan's cultivation level wasn't the best even in the Gone Sky Divine Sect. However, although the blood spirit formation is ready, we still need a nether body as a guide. I see that you're quite talented. Why don't you offer the nether body to our tribe and help us conquer the world? What? Chen Qingshan suddenly looked up. His eyes were filled with shock. However, before he could do anything, an evil light suddenly appeared between the blood-child holy nascent soul's eyebrows. It turned into a sinister shadow and grabbed at him. Oh no! Chen Qingshan's expression changed. Spiritual light bloomed around him, and he struck out with his palm. Buzz! The void buzzed. Layers of nether chi gathered and turned into a divine seal that was 100 feet long. It went up. However, Chen Qingshan was only at the 2nd grade of the Exalted Realm, while the blood-child holy infant was at the 8th grade of the Exalted Realm and had the mark of Pluto. As a result, the moment the 2 attacks collided, Chen Qingshan's face suddenly paled. Blood spurted from his mouth as he was directly blown away, falling to the side of the cave. There's no need to resist. You should feel honored to be able to sacrifice yourself for my race. The blood-child holy infant smiled sinisterly. He did not give Chen Qingshan any time to catch his breath. The nether shadow above his head suddenly stepped out and crushed the young man into the ground with a tremendous force. Ling People's young master and the Realm Lord's palace have discovered the whereabouts of our sect. It's too late. Today, I will activate the 10,000 spirits blood sacrifice and fuse with the mark of the god of the underworld. I will become the only god of the underworld clan." As soon as he finished speaking, a bloody glow suddenly appeared around the blood-child holy infant, enveloping the entire cave. In the depths of the cave, a strange sound of rolling waves suddenly resounded. "Come, I'll let you see the true power of the Nether race. When my race returns, we can sacrifice all the living beings in this domain. As for me, I will lead the Nether race to go against the gods and slay the immortals, achieving eternal hegemony." The blood-child holy infant laughed maniacally at the sky. He grabbed Chun Chingshan in his hand and turned to walk into the depths of the cave. There, a sea of blood bobbed up and down. The sun, moon, the universe, and the sea of stars all fell into it. Endless evil images began to appear. Vaguely, Chun Chingshan seemed to see a blood-red evil figure with a ferocious face slowly descend. It stood at the top of the sky and looked down on all living beings, emitting an ancient evil aura. Boom! The entire barren mountain trembled violently. Rocks cracked, and ancient trees burned. Even some of the weaker sky-gone disciples were crushed to ashes by this evil aura. Dream Demon raised his head in surprise and looked at the blood-red netherworld radiance surging in the cave. A hint of panic suddenly appeared in his eyes. Chun Chingshan had been summoned by the Holy Infant and had not returned. Now that such an evil image had appeared, the Holy Infant had most likely activated the blood formation and sacrificed all living beings in an attempt to enter the Saint Realm. However, such a commotion would quickly attract many factions. Could it be that the blood-child Holy Infant had already thought of a way out and the Sky-Gone Divine sect had already been abandoned? Chingshan, Dream Demon's eyes trembled. She suddenly stepped forward and was about to rush toward the mountain peak. However, before she could get close to the cave, Sect Master Gon Tian descended from the sky and stopped her in her tracks. What do you want? Get lost. Demonical flowed around Dream Demon, and spiritual light surged. It was as if an ancient demon had suddenly awakened and could not be stopped. Although she had yet to enter the Saint Realm, there was no trace of fear on her face. Chun Chingshan was now all that she had to persevere on her path to immortality. If he really died at the hands of the Holy Infant, to Dream Demon, her Tao heart would shatter and the world would be destroyed. You're courting death. How dare you insult me? See if I don't crush your cough head. As soon as he finished speaking, Sect Master Gon Tian reached out with his hand, and 10,000 streaks of dark chi filled the sky. The void shattered as a sinister palm imprint blasted out, shattering the devilish will around Dream Demon and suppressing him. Boom! Instantly, the mountain peak cracked and the world reversed. Dream Demon looked at the bloody light formation that was gradually solidifying with despair. A trace of blood spilled from the corner of her mouth. Chingshan, die! Sect Master Gon Tian snorted and stepped forward. However, just as he waved his hand and was about to kill this reckless disciple of the sect, he suddenly saw black fog rise up in front of him, as if drowsiness had swept over him. In a short moment, many desires appeared in front of him. The admiration of tens of thousands, the glory of the world. At this moment, he seemed to have become the true sect master of the Azure Sky sect. All he could see were his subjects kneeling and his disciples bowing their heads. Not good. It's the dream realm. Sect Master Gon Tian was stunned. Netherlight swirled in his eyes, but when he looked down again, the girl was nowhere to be seen. On the mountain peak, there was suddenly the sound of wind breaking. Sect Master Gon Tian turned his head and saw a black-clothed figure flash into the blood formation. Damn it! How dare you disturb the Holy Infant's cultivation? Before he could finish his sentence, the sky and earth within 1,000 feet of him suddenly darkened. Sect Master Gon Tian was stunned. He slowly looked up and saw that there were already many figures above him. They were so densely packed that there was no end to them. They were countless demonic figures wearing battle armor and holding divine halberds. Their fighting spirit shook the sky. In front of the tens of thousands of demonic figures, there was a young man in black with his hair tied up. He looked at the blood formation on the mountain peak with a serious expression. Beside him, there were 3 women dressed in different clothes, but all of them were peerlessly beautiful. A wisp of astonishment appeared on the faces of the 3 women. Obviously, they were shocked by the ghastly and vast bloody aura. Chapter 1106. Amiba. Yao Guang's eyes were cold, and the Buddhist light around him shone brightly. Even with her Buddhist nature, there was a rare murderous look on her face. How many lives did he have to kill to gather such a thick blood energy? Jean Han covered her red lips with her hand and leaned toward Ling Xiao in fear. Young master, it's so scary. Buzz, buzz. At this moment, the sound of wind breaking could be heard from afar. One figure after another appeared in the sky, and all of them looked at the sinister blood fog that permeated the mountain peak with a shocked expression. Everyone could feel the resentment of the living beings in the blood mist. Obviously, they had been slaughtered and turned into vengeful spirits. It's the Taigu Ling people's black demon guards. That's Yao Guang's bodhisattva, and the eldest princess of the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty, Jean Han. That young man is Master Ling Xiao. It's Master Ling Xiao. Could it be that the young master was also attracted by the evil elephant here? I heard that the 4 great divine dynasties had traces of that demon. The young master showed up to slay the demon and took the responsibility of guarding the evil treasure. Then, we want to find the demon. Yes, yes. Someone saw the legendary strange armor. It's the one with the blood eye in the middle. The sky demon, Qin Shun. Could it be that the one hidden in the blood formation is Qin Shun? Boom! Just as everyone was sighing in amazement, Ling Xiao's figure flashed out. Kill! Don't leave a single one alive. A cold and deep voice echoed in the sky. The 10,000 demon guards instantly turned into a black flood and fell from the sky, trapping the gone divine dynasty disciples in the mountain. Boom, boom. Spiritual light danced, and the killing aura shook the sky. With the strength of the Black Jade Guards, how could a mere motley crew resist them? In fact, even Sect Master Gan Tian, who had stepped into the saint stage, fell from the sky when the 2 black demon commanders swung their halberds. No one knew if he was dead or alive. At this moment, Ling Xiao ignored the killing behind him and stood with his hands behind his back on top of the blood array. As early as half a day ago, he had already arrived at the periphery of this bare mountain. However, in order to avoid alerting the enemy, he did not move and pretended to look for the demon. Ling Xiao immediately sensed something when the blood formation was activated. He immediately landed on a mountain with a mysterious heavenly ancient battleship. Of course, with Chun Qingshan's luck, Ling Xiao did not believe that he would die so easily. No matter how one looked at it, the bloodchild holy infant was a villain. Furthermore, it was a villain related to Chun Qingshan's nether body. Therefore, this ordeal might be an opportunity for Chun Qingshan to grow again. On the other hand, Ling Xiao was surprised that Dream Demon had disregarded life and death to barge into the array. Chun Qingshan was originally the model of love shakes the 9 heavens. Now that the Dream Demon had transformed into Gu Xi, it could be said that his Tao heart had been reconstructed. If this Dream Demon were to fall again, Ling Xiao didn't know whether he should sympathize with this little immortal sect disciple or congratulate him for being even more miserable and for being one step closer to becoming the sole ruler of the world. No, I don't want to be a demon anymore. Sect Master, save me. Oh, Sect Master seems to be gone. The entire barren mountain was instantly filled with screams and cries. Yao Guang and the other 2 figures descended from the sky and landed in front of Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao turned his head and looked at Yao Guang in surprise. There was a wisp of blood on his white robe. The corners of his mouth immediately curled up into a smile. The law of the world was that there was no end to it. The Brahma Bodhisattva was merciful and did not like killing. However, today, he had broken his vow to kill. Indeed, this group of Gontian evil spirits was cruel and merciless. They deserved to be killed. However, what truly changed the Bodhisattva's temperament was not the blood formation that gathered thousands of living beings in front of her. Instead, it was Ling Zhao's subtle influence that made her see the ugliness of human nature. At that time, Yuan Yao was merciful and did not kill or get angry. Ling Xiao had encouraged her and made her firmly believe that everything in the world was beautiful. In this way, she'd personally buried the lives of countless followers by her side and shattered her Tao heart in one go. With this experience, the current Yaowang would definitely not believe in the beauty of human nature and would be on guard all times. So, Ling Xiao simply allowed her to experience the true darkness of human nature on the path to immortality. Every man for himself, let alone on the path to immortality that went against the heavens. No matter if it was Xiao Yuer's end, the upheaval in the four dynasties, or the blood formation before her eyes, all of it shook Yaowang's firm belief in being merciful. If evil spirits laid down their butcher's knife, then they can become Buddhas. If people repent, then they should be redeemed. Then, what's the point of me cultivating suffering, overcoming calamities, and walking on the path to Buddhism? I should become a demon and lay down my butcher's knife. As he looked at the dazzling blood-red devil lotus between Yaowang's brows, the smile on Ling Zhao's face grew even gentler. Her Buddhist nature was fading, and her demonic nature had been born. It probably wouldn't be long before this Bodhisattva of the West Pole completely fell into the demonic path. At that time, he only needed to personally imprint that glazed lotus heart into her chest, and the Bodhisattva would probably become a demon Bodhisattva. The Tao of Karma was indeed the most mysterious of the 3,000 great Taos. This Yaowang appeared in front of the sky demon again and again, and she was also a demon Buddha. Could it be that she was related to the sky demon in her previous life? Plop! The upheaval in the mountain was completely extinguished when Sect Master Gontian's figure was thrown in front of Ling Xiao by the two commanders of the Black Devil Guards. The ancient forest and mountain rocks had long been dyed red with blood, and the thick smell of blood filled the sky. Above the void, many prodigies and experts from the surrounding factions looked at the 10,000 black-armored figures with reverence, as well as the black-clothed, peerless young master in front of them. When the demon guards went to war, not even a blade of grass would survive. Such a murderous aura was truly terrifying, and no one dared to look directly at it. Your Sect Master Gontian? Ling Xiao lowered his head and looked at the blood-stained Sect Master Gontian. He frowned slightly. Is your master here? Oomph. Wait until my master merges with the blood essence and divine soul of these tens of thousands of living beings for the blood sacrifice ceremony. He will definitely be unparalleled in the Azure Dome realm and crush all of you beneath his feet. Sect Master Gontian snorted coldly and straightened his neck. He was rather unyielding. What? Living beings for the blood sacrifice ceremony? What a cruel method. Looks like Qin Shun is here. Hearing this, everyone instantly exclaimed with a trace of fear in their eyes. The sky demon, Qin Shun, had been able to escape from the young master of the Realm Lord Palace and the young master of the Ling people so many times. He must have an extremely terrifying, life-saving trump card on him. Some people even guessed that it was a spatial treasure that could allow him to travel through space at will. That's right. The sky demon's wings were not fully grown yet, and he was still unable to pose a threat to many factions. However, once he grew up, the entire Azure Dome realm would suffer his wrath. Oh, Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly, and his gaze gradually turned solemn. Is there a way to break this blood array? A way to break it? I suspect that you're looking down on our master. The blood energy in this blood array was sucked dry while the living beings were still alive, and it gathered all their resentment. Unless the blood sacrifice ceremony ends, even a heavenly sovereign would not be able to Pucci. Before sect leader Gontian could finish speaking, one of his heads suddenly exploded. Chapter 1107. Ling Xiao was taken aback. Even Xinyuan Weiyang and Jin Han looked at Yao Guang, who was chanting Buddha's name, in shock. Their beautiful eyes were filled with shock. Amipa, evil demons should be killed. Yao Guang's eyes were calm, but the red lotus between his eyebrows became brighter and brighter. It was as if it was alive, and there was a demonic aura that was the opposite of Buddha's aura. Black demon guards, listen to my order. Attack with all your might and destroy this array. Ling Xiao sighed and shouted coldly. Buzz! Suddenly, there seemed to be demonic clouds in the sky above the barren mountain. An indescribably terrifying battle aura gathered and turned into a 1,000-foot-long demonic halberd. It crossed the void and smashed down from the sky. The blue sky shattered, and cracks in space stretched for thousands of miles. Demonic light surged, and the heavenly Tao no longer existed. Boom! Finally, the demonic halberd landed on the blood array, and there was a deafening sound of thunder. However, what was terrifying was that at this moment, there were suddenly bursts of mournful whimpers from the blood array. Shadows of remnant souls appeared from the array. There were old and young, cultivators and mortals. There was no end to it, and it was like the gates of hell had opened. The radiance around the demonic halberd was almost instantly devoured by the thousands of remnant souls. In fact, the surging battle aura became even more terrifying. Crack! Even so, 10,000 demon guards and 10 great saint stage experts gathered together to attack with the halberd. It still caused a slight crack to appear on the blood formation. You guys stay here. I'll enter the array and kill the demons. Ling Xiao's eyes narrowed. He suddenly took a step forward and flew away. Young master, I'll go with you. Xinyuan Weiyang's pretty face turned serious. She grabbed Ling Xiao's arm and flew into the ancient array, disappearing without a trace. Just went in. Above the void, the faces of many disciples froze, and a hint of respect gradually appeared in their eyes. Indeed, the rumors were true. The young master of the Ling people was righteous and fearless. He was the backbone of the human race. The blood matrix alone could withstand the attacks of 10,000 people, including 10 saints. The sky demon's methods were obvious. Even so, Master Ling Xiao still charged in without hesitation, all for the sake of stopping the sky demon's blood sacrifice and fighting for a wisp of life for the human race. However, it appeared that there was still a long way to go before he could slay this demon. However, as long as they could delay his growth, it would be a great fortune for the human race and the entire Azure Sky realm. Lord Ling Xiao, this is how you are. He never thought for himself. His heart was for the common people. He was righteous in the 9th heaven. No. I want to go back to the sect and ask the old ancestor to come out. Nothing must happen to young master. Yes, I will go to the Martial Emperor city now and report the situation to the Martial Emperor Lord. I'll go to the Dragon Abyss Sword Tomb and see if the Sword Master can come out and slay the demons. A series of shouts came from the crowd. Streaks of light flashed across the sky and flew into the distance. This barren mountain was quite far away from the Sword Tomb and the Martial Emperor city. Therefore, most of the people who rushed over after seeing the phenomenon were from the small sects nearby. Their strongest were only saints. Since this matrix was difficult for saints to break, they could only ask for help from primes. In short, nothing must happen to young master. Boom, boom. Blood chi spread out from the depths of the cave like an ocean. In the blood sea, two figures hugged each other tightly. Their bodies seemed to be bound by blood chains. They were like cicadas, unable to move. Not far away, the blood-child holy infant sat cross-legged in the void. It led the blood chi to rise and gather between its eyebrows. At this moment, a blood-colored evil figure stood quietly above its head. As the blood chi surged, the figure gradually solidified, as if it was going to break through the barrier of the epic and appear in the world. Why are you so silly? In the blood pool, Chun Qingshan's face was pale. The winding blood chains seemed to have pierced into his bones and flesh, devouring his spiritual power and bloodline. Qingshan, I've said it before, no matter if it's a mountain or a sea of stars, or hell, I'll go with you. Dream Demon's eyes were gentle as she nestled in Qingshan's arms. At this moment, there were also blood chains piercing through her body. Upon closer inspection, it was actually a blood chain that tied the two of them together. See, Qingshan, actually there's something I've always wanted to tell you. In the current situation, the two of them were most likely going to die. The feeling of losing their bloodline was irreversible. Dream Demon raised her head and looked at the face that was close to her. She reached out and gently held it in her hand. Qingshan, actually you don't have to say anything. Qingshan shook his head. His eyes were filled with tenderness. If one day I become neither human nor ghost, will you still stay by my side? Qingshan, I'm loyal to you. Who cares about appearance? That's right. Who cares about appearance? I won't let you die. No one can take you away from me. Qingshan took a deep breath. A bright smile bloomed on his face. Then, Dream Demon was stunned to see that strange blood patterns began to spread from the young man's neck. They were densely packed, like a spider web. Soon, half of his face was covered. At the same time, an extremely evil aura surged out. It actually shattered the evil shadow in the void. Waves of blood soared into the sky. Dark runes evolved and covered the universe. The rising blood mist suddenly froze in the air. Then it passed through the blood chains and converged toward Qingshan. The blood child, holy infant, opened his eyes. He looked at the two figures standing in the middle of the blood pool like a blood cocoon in shock. His lips trembled, but he didn't say anything. What's going on? Why? Why does this human youth have the divine bloodline of the Nether race? Buzz. Even the mark of the Nether god between his eyebrows burst out layers of evil light uncontrollably. There was a deafening buzzing sound. Boom, boom, boom. The entire barren mountain was shocked for no reason. Even the blood array that enveloped the cave seemed to be overflowing with golden light. It was evil and mysterious. Damn it, he is merging with the power of the blood spirit array. Bastard, this is mine. I have the mark of the Nether god. So what if you are the descendant of the Nether god? In this life, I am the true god of the Nether race. The blood child, holy infant, looked unwilling. But no matter how he struggled, the blood power in the blood pool still surged toward Qingshan unstoppably. It enveloped him and Dream Demon together. No. At the entrance of the cave, Ling Xiao slowly stepped out, especially when he heard the miserable and desperate cry of anger. The corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. According to Qingshan's model, when he awakened the nether body and fell into the evil path, it was only the beginning of his immortal path. Therefore, Ling Xiao had guessed from the beginning that there might be some secrets about his identity. Now it seemed that this young disciple of an immortal sect who had fallen to the lower realm was very likely to be related to the sealed nether race. Young master, what is that sound? Xinyuan Weiyang hugged Ling Xiao's arm with both hands. There was a hint of nervousness on her pretty face. Hearing this, Ling Xiao sighed helplessly. She was clearly a coward, but she loved to put on a brave front. It's an evil demon. It's very likely to be the sky demon. It eats people and only eats beautiful girls. Chapter 11:08. Xinyuan Weiyang's delicate body trembled, and when she saw that Ling Xiao seemed to be smiling, she immediately pouted and said hatefully, "Young master, you're scaring me again. No matter what happens later, you're not allowed to act on your own." Ling Xiao took a deep look at Xinyuan Weiyang, then raised his foot and strode toward the churning blood mist. With Xinyuan Weiyang's status as the current emperor, she must know that the boundary-breaking talisman was on him. Although this girl had not submitted to him yet, she clearly trusted him greatly. Ling Xiao only needed to find a suitable opportunity to capture her Dao heart. Boom! Boom! When the two figures appeared at the edge of the blood pool, they saw a child in blood-red clothes waving his small fists in exasperation. bombarding a blood-colored evil cocoon in front of him. Ling Xiao had guessed that the person behind the Gone Sky Divine Sect was most likely an evil child from the words Holy Infant. However, he did not expect it to be such a delicate little thing. Such a cute little thing would probably shatter with a single punch, right? Obviously, just as Ling Xiao had guessed, he should be a stepping stone in Chen Qingshan's growth process. At this moment, Ling Xiao could also feel that there were two extremely surging waves of vitality in the blood cocoon. Thinking about it, Chen Qingshan and the Dream Demon should be fine, and it was most likely a coincidence that they snatched the opportunity that the Holy Infant had been preparing for a long time. The blood child Holy Infant's fist landed and seemed to have sensed something. He turned his head and looked at the two figures walking over in surprise. His small face was immediately filled with shock. He was originally in the Venerable Realm, and Ling Xiao had deliberately concealed his aura. With the level of his spirit, it was impossible for him to detect it. On the other hand, Xianyuan Weiyang had countless treasures bestowed by the Xianyuan Emperor clan. At this moment, she was carefully following beside Ling Xiao and had long concealed her aura. Who are you? The blood-child holy nascent soul narrowed his eyes and suddenly retreated several feet, as if he was facing a great enemy. The blood formation he had set up outside the cave was based on the mark of the god of the underworld. Even if a supreme being expert wanted to break it, it would take a long time. Originally, the blood-child Holy Infant had thought that as long as he devoured the lifeblood energy accumulated in the blood-spirit grand formation, he would be able to step into the Saint Realm. At that time, he would be able to use the Nether race's secret technique to find the Nether Earth and escape. However, he never expected that these two young men, who looked like ants, would actually appear in the formation. "Where is the sky demon, Qingshan?" Ling Xiao said indifferently. If it weren't for Xianyuan Weiyang, he wouldn't have even bothered to waste words with this blood-child Holy Infant. He would have killed him directly. However, there were still many of his fans outside the cave. Of course, he couldn't let his image crumble. The sky demon, Qingshan. The blood-child Holy Infant rolled his eyes, and a smile appeared on his face. Yes, Qingshan is in this blood cocoon. Earlier, he had already used many methods, but he couldn't even shake the blood cocoon at all. What was even more infuriating was that the blood spirit energy he had prepared for nearly 100 years had been completely devoured by the blood cocoon. With his current strength, it was very difficult to truly kill Chen Qingshan. Thus, he might as well use the methods of these two young men. Perhaps there would be some unexpected surprises. Oh, in this blood cocoon? Ling Xiao smiled warmly, and his figure suddenly disappeared on the spot. Suddenly, lightning seemed to shine in the cave, piercing through the 9 heavens. In Ling Xiao's hand, the supreme Saint Fu Tian was surrounded by thousands of rays of divine light and slashed down with the force of splitting the sky. This sword force was clearly beyond the scope of the Supreme Being realm. However, before the smile on the blood-child Holy Infant's face disappeared, he saw that the thousands of rays of sword light were not aimed at the blood cocoon at all. Instead, they were aimed at his head. Ling Xiao stood in the void. There seemed to be a primordial mist flowing behind him, dispelling the evil and destroying the demonic barrier. Endless Taoist rhymes flowed and evolved into layers of divine and immortal patterns. The brilliance of a sword immortal was unparalleled. At this moment, even Xianyuan Weiyang's beautiful face showed a hint of greed. Black robes tied up his hair and a green sword in his hand. Especially that cold and handsome immortal face, which was as flawless as jade, inexplicably made people a little dazed. Buzz! The sword light slashed down, carrying an extremely vast power, and landed on the blood-child Holy Infant's head. The blood-child's face suddenly changed, and he became incomparably pale. Evil light began to bloom around him, turning into layers of fog. It was like an evil sun rising from the east, sweeping through the world. Boom! However, given the blood-child Holy Nascent soul's strength, how could it possibly contend against Ling Xiao? Just as the sword radiance descended, a blood-curdling scream was heard. Where the blood fog was surging, a thin figure quickly retreated and landed at the edge of the blood pool. At this moment, a bloody wound appeared on the blood-child holy infant's chest. The hatred in his eyes was even more sinister than the blood fog in the cave. The human race is indeed despicable. Forget it. Today, I will use both of your essence and blood to extinguish the hatred in my heart. As soon as he finished speaking, a vertical crack suddenly appeared between the blood-child holy infant's eyebrows. There seemed to be a mark in it that was like an eye, exuding an indestructible evil. As expected, you are the vassal of the sky demon. Evil thing, how dare you compete with the sun and moon? Ling Zhao's expression was solemn as he shielded Xianyuan Weiyang behind him. When he saw the evil light suddenly enveloping the blood-child holy infant, even Xianyuan Weiyang felt his heart palpitate. That kind of sinister and strange fluctuation was completely different from the aura of spiritual power. It actually made one's heart tremble unconsciously. However, fortunately, the young master was smart and saw through this demon's trick. Otherwise, if it were him, he might have fallen into this evil demon's trap. God of the underworld mark, dark, sifting world. The blood-child holy infant shouted. The evil light suddenly flourished and turned into a blood world that was about to envelop Ling Xiao and the blood-child holy infant. Young master, be careful, Buzz. But before Xianyuan Weiyang could do anything, the world in front of him suddenly fell into darkness. There seemed to be a crescent moon rising, evolving into a world of destruction. Inexplicably, Xianyuan Weiyang actually saw many strange phenomena in that moon. Mountains, rivers, and thousands of miles of star sea. An ancient aura gradually enveloped him until his mind was extinguished. All he could see was darkness. Clang, clang, clang. Suddenly, a bell rang in the azure world. In the Golden Crow Imperial Palace, Shuexian was dressed in white. His brows were slightly furrowed as he looked up into the sky. His deep and bright eyes were full of seriousness. Young Master Shui, this is the evil being sealed by the Golden Crow Imperial Palace. Behind him, Jin Yan's expression was indifferent, and her tone was even a little cold. Just now, this young master of the Realm Lord Palace insisted that she open the seal, saying that he wanted to personally inspect the evil being in the palace. Even with this young master's means, he was shocked when he saw the power of the seal on the immortal foundation. This power was not spiritual power or soul power. It was more like a kind of origin power. It could be said to be mysterious. Back then, Ling Xiao had ordered Feng Ling to personally seal this place because he was worried that someone would enter the palace to investigate. Given Feng Ling's strength, even a paragon would not be able to find any clues. No more. Let's go. Shuexian shook his head slightly and turned to walk out of the palace. The Realm Lord was missing, and there might have been a rebellion in the Realm Lord Palace. It was safe to seal this item here. Could it be that he really misunderstood Ling Xiao again? Does this young master of the Ling people really have nothing to do with the Sky Demon? Pass down the order of the Realm Lord. The second prince of the ancient Qilin divine dynasty colluded with the Sky Demon and deserved to die. From today onwards, the powerhouses of the four dynasties will submit to the Golden Crow Imperial Palace and guard this palace together. Chapter 1109. Elder Xing sent another group of world divine guards to guard this palace. Outside the ancient palace, Shuexian looked up at the sky with an extremely cold expression. It seemed that the Sky Demon had taken away two evil treasures, and Ling Xiao had the ancient Qilin divine dynasty's treasure. As long as he guarded this place, this evil item would never appear in the Azure Sky Continent. He had heard the Realm Lord mention the seal of the four dynasties. He said that this item was related to the fate of the Azure Sky Continent. Once it appeared, it would be the beginning of the end of the world. Now that the Realm Lord was missing, the chaos in the Azure Sky Continent had appeared. Although he had used the sky demon to create chaos, he had gained more time to grow. However, the situation had to be under control so that he would not lose this game. Yes, young lord. Lu Xinghe bowed slightly and nodded. Since the situation of the four dynasties has been decided, I hope that you will put aside the grudges in your hearts in the future and work together against a common enemy. If I find out that anyone is disobeying, I will kill them without mercy. Shuexian's expression turned cold. He nodded slightly at Jin Yuyang and walked toward the direction of the Shenwu dynasty. He already knew where the gone Sky Divine sect was from the memories of the demonic sect disciple. However, in Shuexian's opinion, this demonic sect was most likely a bait that the Sky Demon had deliberately set up. It could be abandoned at any time. Even so, it was better to destroy this evil sect to prevent more unforeseen events. At this moment, in the cave in the barren mountain, the blood-child holy infant looked at the girl in front of him who seemed to have fallen into an illusion. His little face was full of question marks. Since when did my sifting Een world have such power? It can actually make people fall into an illusion? Little friend, do you have a lot of question marks? Just as the blood-child's mouth was slightly open and his expression was blank, he suddenly heard a cold and mocking voice from behind him. Before he could even turn his head to look, he felt a torrential force suddenly shatter space and smash fiercely onto his body. Damn it! The blood-child holy infant's expression changed drastically. The blood mist around him fluctuated, and he suddenly jumped up, trying to avoid the sneak attack behind him. However, at this moment, he clearly felt an extremely mysterious aura enveloping him. Time and space froze. Even the evil light emitted from his body seemed to be annihilated at this moment. Gulp! The blood-child holy infant's eyes were wide open. He tried his best to turn his head to look at the shadow of the fist. There, he saw a figure that looked exactly the same as the young man in front of him. A long time ago, Ling Zhao's main body had returned to Spirit God Realm with Double Shadow and the others. With the strength of his physical body, even a Saint Realm expert would find it difficult to withstand a single punch from him, let alone an Exalt Realm ant. At this critical juncture, an evil shadow appeared on the bloodchild's body. His divine power was vast, and he punched out in the air, colliding with Ling Xiao. Underworld, God body, immortal and indestructible. Boom! It was as if 100,000 meteors had fallen. If it wasn't for the blood array protecting the cave, the entire barren mountain would have been completely destroyed. The underworld deity art was the strongest body refining art in the world. It required the blood of living beings to forge a supreme physical body. Originally, the blood-child holy nascent soul had planned to use the blood formation to refine its nether body and completely merge with the nether god mark to become the only one of its kind in history. But who would have thought that everything would be ruined by a few humans? Despicable humans. In the eyes of the nether race, humans were only worthy of being sacrifices. How could they stop a revolution in the 9 heavens for no reason? In the primordial era, all races pursued the heavens. Even the ancient gods of the immortal race were only one part of this immortal path. There was nothing special about them. Under the leadership of the nether god, the nether race dominated the 9 heavens and suppressed all living beings. But this race was born evil. They sacrificed blood spirits, and their cruelty angered both humans and gods. In the end, all races joined forces to kill the nether god and completely seal this race. Originally, he should have led this race back to the world. Pucci. The moment the 2 fist shadows collided, the evil shadow's arm around the blood-child holy nascent soul shattered. Even the blood-child himself was sent flying by the huge force and smashed into the cave wall. Pow! At this moment, the blood-child's face was filled with extreme shock. He couldn't understand. With his nether body and the nether god mark as a contract, how could this human youth shatter his defense with one punch? Furthermore, what was going on with these 2 identical silhouettes? At this moment, the cave was covered by the blood array, so the blood child didn't hear the immortal demon ancient bell ring. Otherwise, this little cutie would most likely be scared to death. You? Who are you? Blood dripped from the corner of the blood child's mouth. The arrogance on his face had long disappeared. Who am I? Ling Xiao turned to look in the direction of the blood cocoon. He saw that the blood chi inside was surging. It was obvious that Chun Qingshan was about to come out. In the next moment, his figure suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already about 10 feet in front of the blood child. Endless Taoist rhymes surged around him. It was vast and empty, and divine elephants overlapped. I don't care who you are. You must die today. I am a new nether god. My body is indestructible, and my soul is indestructible. The blood child, holy nascent soul's expression changed when he saw the black-robed figure coming through space. The mark between his brows emitted a terrifying evil light again. Oh, you have quite a lot of little tricks. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. He didn't give the blood child a chance to perform. He punched out, and heaven and earth trembled. A black fist surrounded by endless demonic light smashed into the blood child's chest. The blood child had the body of an infant. Therefore, Ling Xiao's punch almost covered his entire body. Then, he was deeply embedded in the rock wall behind him. Pucci, the blood child, holy nascent soul's eyes bulged as he spat out blood from his mouth. At this moment, he seemed to feel that even with his terrifying nether body, his body and bones were still shattered by this punch. Even his internal organs were shattered and sprayed out his mouth. There's something. Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows. He grabbed the blood child's neck with one hand and punched with the other. Boom, boom, boom. The rumbling in the cave didn't stop. It wasn't until the blood cocoon behind him suddenly rippled with endless bloody light that Ling Xiao's lips curled up into a smile. He had entered the blood formation to kill the sky demon. If there was no movement, wouldn't people be suspicious? And this was the reason why the blood child, holy nascent soul, was still alive. So what if a venerate without any luck was the reincarnation of the nether god, let alone the nether god's sacred body? In front of the sky demon, even immortals and gods would be slaughtered. Moreover, it seemed that the blood child, holy nascent soul, had just obtained a chance encounter. He didn't have the true ability to control the nether god. Is it this mark? As Ling Xiao's last punch landed, the blood child, holy nascent soul's body was completely shattered. Only a cute little head was left, which Ling Xiao held in his hand. I am a nether god, immortal and indestructible. Until now, the blood child, holy nascent soul, seemed to be immersed in his dream of controlling the 9 heavens. He glared at Ling Xiao with hatred. Nether god? Give it to me. Ling Xiao snorted coldly. He reached out a hand and directly pierced it between the blood child's eyebrows, tearing off the mark that looked like a vertical eye. A shrill scream instantly rang out. Soul light suddenly bloomed in Ling Xiao's eyes. Thousands of soul runes swallowed the blood child's divine soul by force. Right at this moment, an extremely sinister aura suddenly flowed out of the cave. Buzz, you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.